Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
The Morning Sun Will Rise by TheIntrovertRin. Who are you? He barked out a laugh, freedom resonating in every inch of it. I have been called many names, but you may know me as Joy Boy, he replied finally. Adios.
Oh, so this is where you guys are, Kaya said, entering the restaurant where the three were: Luffy, Zoro and Nami eating and drinking. Hello, miss. Luffy greeted with a wave while Nami, who was sitting opposite of Zoro and Luffy, turned to look at the newcomer. Are you alright being out of bed? Nami asked, not wanting Kaya to get more sick. Yes, my sickness was due to the loss of my parents which had occurred the last year. But Usopp-san encouraged me. I can't be weak for forever, she said with a smile, making the others return it. You have done so much for me. Thank you, Kaya said, giving a small bow. I prepared a present for you from the bottom of my heart. It would make me happy if you accepted, she said with excitement, wanting to see how they would react. Luffy hopped off his seat, instantly wanting to see the present and wondering aloud if it was meat. That made everyone chuckle in the bar. Kaya led them to the shore, which left them with a smile each, at the sight of the actual ship with a ship figurehead waiting for them. A caravel! Nami exclaimed happily as she recognized the type of the ship instantly. Wow! Luffy said with awe, jumping up and down in his place and examining the ship caravel, which was already waiting for him to set sail on it. He could hear the soft whispers from it, speaking gently and calling for him and his friends to hop on and start a new adventure, a new chapter, a new journey towards freedom. That's cool. Zoro even complimented at the sight of their pirate ship, which was finally before them. Now, there would be lots of space for him to nap and train. He needs to train to become stronger. It's a slightly old style, but I designed it myself. It's a caravel and it uses a staysail. The controls are in the back, Mary explained, looking at the pirate crew, searching for the one who had defeated Kuro and the Black Cat pirates. Finally, his eyes landed on the savior who had defeated Black Cat pirates and Kuro. When his mistress described him as a boy, he didn't think that he was literally a boy. So it is you who defeated Kuro and his pirate crew with Usopp-kun, Mary said, shock evident in his voice and face. He had really thought the boy to be bigger and have more muscles. But the boy was all lanky and looked weak. He really wonders if the guy with the 3 swords didn't beat the pirates and gave the credit to the kid. That was a possibility, but he knew his mistress wouldn't lie to him regarding these matters. Can we really have this? Luffy asked, ignoring the shock coming from the sheepman before him. Yes, I insist, Kaya confirmed, happy to see that the captain liked it. I will explain the steering system, Mary told as he turned to the kid captain, who crossed his arms over his chest and tried his best to understand. First of all, to adjust the yards about the crew garnet. Mary sweated as he saw the teen looking at him, but without understanding any word. Don't explain to him, Nami said, rubbing her temples. She was really contemplating if Luffy would be okay in the sea. When she would leave. Explain to me, he won't understand anyway. Luffy, taking the golden opportunity to escape from the boring explanation, walked away from them to Zoro and the mistress. I had everything you would need for a voyage loaded on the ship, Kaya told him when he kept ogling the ship and wanted to explore it right away. But Usopp was coming and he wanted to meet his friend and hear him. He wants Usopp to come with them, and have lots of adventure, and fun, and become brave like he truly is. Thanks for causing all the trouble, Luffy chirped happily, making Zoro shake his head with a sigh. Thanks for going through all the trouble, Zoro corrected his captain. Luffy cocked his head, not getting what he said wrong, and when he was about to voice it out, he felt and heard Usopp's screams coming from a big green something rolling towards them. Stop me please. The scream made everyone realize who was coming towards them now. Usopp-san, Kaya gasped, worried for her friend. What's he doing? Luffy asked, not understanding. Was it some kind of game? Like the rolling games that he played sometimes with some kids in the army base when he would want some fun and his brothers, Koala, Hack, Kuma and his dad and Eva would be too busy to play with him. If Usopp was really playing without him, then Luffy was offended. I think we should stop him before he hits the ship, Zoro stated, breaking Luffy's pout and making him notice that Usopp was rolling closer and closer and radiating fear. Standing side by side, Zoro and Luffy both raised a foot, and when Usopp reached them, their feet were firmly in front of them, stopping Usopp from moving anymore. Thanks. Usopp mumbled, with the feet still on his face. No problem, they both replied in unison. You are really going to the sea, Usopp-san? Kaya asked once Usopp took off the bag from his shoulder. The others left them, giving them some time, and went off to take their things from their little boats. Yeah, I have to go before I change my mind, Usopp declared to Kaya, feeling sad inside. He would be leaving a friend, his crew, and the village. But in front of him was the sea, which was calling to him, the adventure that it was promising. He needed to go this time, otherwise he would regret it. Please don't tell me to stop. He didn't want to hear one more time that he shouldn't be going now. That would break him and make him shed his unshed tears. He didn't want to give Kaya that as a last memory of him for now. He will return after he becomes the great warrior of the sea. Till then, there should be only happy memories, no sad farewells for Kaya to think about. I won't, Kaya replied, making Usopp smile a bit. I figured you might do this, but it still makes me sad. When I will return, I will have lots of stories to tell you which would be more unbelievable, Usopp replied with a big grin. I will look forward to it, Kaya said with a smile. She will miss her friend, the storyteller, her savior. The one who showed her the path to be strong. Usopp finally turned to Luffy, who was waiting to hear his decision from the deck of the ship, looking at him curiously. He could tell that the boy wanted him in his crew. Even if he is scared of him, he still thinks of him as his friend. Even if he is dangerous. Even if he can kill him anytime. Usopp started, but he didn't know how to tell his decision. He needed to do this. He steeled his heart and took a breath as he looked at Luffy. I think I might. Why, you know, Jay join. That was enough to make Luffy perk up. Woohoo, Usopp is coming with us, yay. That left Usopp shocked. He saw the teen run happily around Zoro and Nami and the deck, showing all of his happiness, all because Usopp decided to join him. Usopp grinned at the warm feeling that he felt and hoped for. To the new ship. To the new adventure. Alright. Luffy shouted as he lifted the black pirate flag with the symbol of their pirate crew on it. Our pirate flag is done. This was the symbol he had thought of when Ace had set off on his own and had made a cool pirate flag for his pirate crew. Oh, our symbol? Usopp asked with wide eyes. Luffy could still sense some fear radiating from him, but that will change soon and he will make sure of it. Calling him artistically challenged would be an understatement, Usopp mumbled, thinking that Luffy didn't hear it. But Luffy clearly heard it, though he didn't mind it. This could be some sort of abstract art, Nami said, looking at the symbol carefully and thinking if she missed some details. A pirate's flag should be a symbol of death, but this flag is. Zoro wondered, crossing his arms over his chest. Well, it's quite terrifying in a sense. What do you think? Luffy asked, his grin reaching his ears. He could feel the uncertainty they were feeling about voicing their thoughts, especially Usopp, who looked completely shocked at his drawing. Pouting, he looked at his drawing. It isn't that bad, he whined when no one's looked at his wrist, at the seashell bracelet Sabo gave him. It carried the symbol of the pirate flag he wanted to have. I know I didn't draw it well, like this, he said, pointing at his bracelet, but it looks good. Usopp finally took a hesitating step forward. I can draw it if you want. Luffy beamed and showed him the symbol that needed to be painted on the flag, and in no time Usopp was done with it. The perfect painting of the Straw Hat wearing a skull on the flag. That's perfect now, Nami said cheerfully at Usopp's handiwork. There we go, Usopp said confidently, giving a final brush to the flag. It doesn't look even remotely like the other one, Zoro pointed, comparing the two flags. Luffy didn't mind at all and said, that's great, draw one on our sail too. Yeah, well, I have honed my artistic talents by drawing on the walls of people's homes for years, Usopp stated confidently, holding the paintbrush. I'm quite a master artist, you know. Luffy had literal stars in his eyes as he inhaled Usopp's stories as he painted the sails. With this, our pirate ship, going merry, is ready for action, Luffy announced once Usopp completed the story and the painting of the sails with it. Usopp lay on the deck with Nami and Zoro basking in the sun and taking a break from their own work, when a loud sound rang through the air, making them straighten up in an instant. They followed the sound and found a rubber boy, who didn't know the meaning of rest, standing beside a cannon. "What the heck are you doing?" Zoro voiced out everyone's question with an annoyed tone. "I'm testing if the cannon works or not," Luffy replied cheerfully. The last time he was on a ship, he wasn't allowed to be near cannons because, in one of their missions, Luffy had blown off the ship they were on by mistake, leaving the crew stranded and waiting for another ship to come and pick them up. But now he is a big man. He knows that cannons should be pointed at the target, not towards themselves. "Testing?" Usopp asked, looking at the cannon and then at the rock which was in the middle of the ocean. "Yeah, hey Usopp. Try shooting with this," he said excitedly, wanting to see his sniper in action. "Okay." Usopp agreed easily, making Luffy beam. After all, sniping was what he was best in. He did some mental calculations and then fired at the supposed target, making the upper half of the rock go off with a loud boom. "I really hit it," Usopp muttered to himself, feeling surprised that on his first try, he did it. "Oh no," Luffy gasped as his eyes widened. "Nami, we need to head towards the rock, quick." "Why?" Nami questioned, getting up, only to be drowned by Zoro's question. "Why are you shouting, Luffy?" Zoro asked in a grumpy voice. It was the second time his nap had been cut off short. But the panic in Luffy's voice and face made him gulp down the complaints. "We shot someone." "What?" everyone asked with wide eyes. "Two guys. One is injured," Luffy replied, feeling the presence of the other guy waver. "I killed someone," Usopp gasped, falling to his knees, looking with horror at the rocks. Nami and Zoro were already moving the ship, ignoring the mental breakdown Usopp was going through. Even though they sympathized with the teen, they couldn't do anything more in the situation. "He is not dead," Luffy said, closing his eyes and feeling them coming towards their ship. How do you know?" Usopp asked, getting on his feet shakily. He was really relieved that he didn't kill someone. "Mystery power," Luffy replied nonchalantly, focusing on the average-sized boat with a small cabin and mast coming towards them. "What's that?" Zoro asked, leaning on the railing and looking at the ocean after doing his part of the job. Luffy didn't get to reply as a loud yell took their attention. "You damn pirates! I'm gonna slaughter all of you." Zoro's eyes widened, recognizing the voice immediately. "I am," Usopp was stuttering. After all, it was his fault that the man was angry. Luffy plopped a hand on Usopp's shoulder, making him stop stuttering and try to compose himself. He mentally thanked his captain, before standing straight and ready to apologize when the man would come near. "Johnny?" Zoro spoke with wide eyes, as he took in the man with short black hair, sunglasses and a black tattoo on his left cheek. "Zoro Iniki." The man's eyes widened and his grip on his sword loosened instantly. "Where is Yosaku? Isn't he always with you?" Zoro asked, looking at the boat in search of the other guy. Johnny gritted his teeth as he said the terrible words. "Yosaku is sick." "Sick? Yeah, he was just fine a couple of days ago, but all of a sudden he turned pale and kept passing out. I don't know what he's down with. His teeth have begun to fall out," Johnny said through gritted teeth and went into the cabin to bring out a bandaged Yosaku, who was looking way too pale. In this commotion, nobody saw Luffy getting inside the kitchen to get something. "I was trying to at least let him get some rest on top of that rock, but all of a sudden, this ship fired a cannonball at us," Johnny finished, his palm on his eyes, rubbing the stray tears that leaked. "I am truly sorry," Usopp instantly apologized, bowing down. "It's fine. What's done is done," Johnny said in a retarded voice. "Yosaku and Johnny, we were infamous enough to have pirates shaking in their boots at the mere mention of our name. We have lived and worked together for years. Is it all gonna end now?" Zoro stood there shocked, not wanting to realize that one of his friends was lying on the deathbed. Here, Luffy arrived at the scene holding a glass of lemon juice and offering it to the laying man. "Luffy, it's not time to joke around," Zoro said through gritted teeth. He knows that his captain is a dumbass, but he didn't take him as the type to tease a man who is in an awful condition. "Kid, I won't let you go free if you dare to make a mockery out of my partner's suffering," Johnny said, standing up in an intimidating way, but it didn't do anything to Luffy, who was pouting at the anger they were feeling and wondering if he didn't remember the right thing. "Oh God." Nami spoke for the first time, rubbing her temples. "Luffy, go ahead. she said as she saw the momentary confusion in the teen's eyes. She really appreciates that the boy who doesn't look like you would know these kinds of stuff at least knows this. She placed her hands on her hips and glared at the bounty hunter and the swordsman. How thick can you both be? What did you say? Zoro asked with irritation evident in his voice. He is afflicted with scurvy, Nami replied. If we are not too late, then he should recover in a few days. Are you telling the truth, sis? Johnny asked, feeling hope for the first time in a while. In the past, it was practically a death sentence for sailors. It's caused by lack of nutrients found in fruits and vegetables. It was quite common back then because ships simply didn't have the technology to effectively store fresh fruits and vegetables for a long time. Nami explained. Are you a doctor too, Nami? Luffy asked with awe reflecting from her eyes. I knew that girl was special. Usopp's eyes never lie, Usopp said proudly standing beside Luffy. If you are sailing, you should know this much at least. Nami yelled at the duo who were kidding around. She then turned towards Luffy, who had a goofy smile on his face, and said, God, who the hell knows how you knew about this even? Luffy puckered his lips and looked away, sweating, making Nami blink. I don't know, what you were saying, Luffy said, making others feel that Luffy is hiding something. But what was there to hide in these basic facts? That confused them all. But their attention snapped to the now energetic man, who was on the doorsteps of death earlier and had jumped up completely disregarding his body. I'm charged up and ready for action, the man shouted happily. Haha, my partner is up now, Johnny shouted, jumping up with his fists in the air. Luffy GNG, the man had not recovered enough to still move. Stop moving. The people in the Revolutionary Army had drilled some basic facts about the life in sea in him, and he knows that normal people don't recover this soon after getting malnourished. Everyone watched Luffy shout like a little gremlin and scold the bigger man, who stood in a pose with the other man and was ready to introduce themselves. Sorry for the late introductions, the name's Johnny. And I'm Yosaku. The now up man, with a cigarette in his mouth, supplied them. Zoro used to bounty hunt with us in the past. Nice to meet you all, they said in unison. I don't know how to thank you, Yosaku said, bowing to Luffy, who wanted the man to lie down before he scares Zoro about his health. I thought I bit the dust for sure. Well, color me surprised. I never could have imagined the infamous pirate hunter to have become a pirate himself, Johnny said, looking at Zoro, who had his arms crossed over his chest. Boohee! Yosaku screamed in pain and fell, throwing up blood. Just rest up already, Nami and Luffy screamed at the man, who was now unconscious. That made things easier. Usopp showed them the guest room where they could rest up and meet with the others on the deck. Let this be a lesson to the rest of you, Nami said as she sat on the stairs. She mentally felt bad for telling you. She was getting attached to the idiots, wasn't she? But she needed to leave. And then she won't be able to see the liar lie and tell stories to Luffy, who would believe every word of his. She wouldn't be able to see Zoro's small smiles and his protective streak towards Luffy. She wouldn't be able to make Luffy dress in different colors of clothes and different fashions. She would miss the widest smiles that she gets from the youngest the most. These are the kinds of dangers we'll have to face on long voyages. Zoro added a cent of his to the conversation, making Nami come out of her sadness. He would have died for sure if he hadn't come across us, Usopp said, looking at the sky from where he leaned on the mast. We definitely need one more crew member before we get to the Grand Line, Zoro said, looking at Luffy, who was rocking in his place where he sat cross-legged. Alright, I've decided then, Luffy said with a grin, making the others look expectantly at him. We need a musician. What? They yelled together, amazed by the sheer stupidity of their captain. We need a musician. It's the most bonk. Luffy's speech got interrupted by Nami, who decided that Luffy should get one, right now. We need a cook, dumbass, Nami said with her tooth getting sharpened edges. Ah! Luffy pouted, rubbing the bump on his head. He wondered how Nami could punch him when he is made of rubber. Bro! Johnny emerged on the deck, having heard half of the conversation. What is it, Johnny? Zoro asked, looking at the man, who had his hands raised high in the air. If you are looking for a cook, I know a place, the man said. But getting one join is another matter. It's a restaurant on the seas, the Bharati. Bharati? Luffy repeated the word with excitement. He had heard the place from one of his mother's stories and the winds which bring news to him every now and then. It's a place with fighting cooks. He really was about to forget to visit the place, if Zoro's friend hadn't informed him about it. That's right. You should be able to reach it in 2 to 3 days. Johnny supplied. That place is also too close to Grand Line, so you gotta be careful. Lot of dangerous guys around those parts. Even that hawk-eyed man you've been looking for has been sighted once there. Johnny said the last words, instantly alerting Zoro, who was looking at Luffy doing a happy dance and carefreely shouting about food. Luffy sat on the figurehead of the Going Merry, looking at the endless ocean, and enjoying the little spray of saline water which sprinkled on his face. He enjoyed his mother's soft lullaby, trying to make him go to sleep. But he was sleepless. He was full of energy, hearing everything that the winds were bringing to him, hearing Ace's and Sabo's new exploits. It was one thing he loved doing. Knowing about his brother's well-being, who were reckless just like him, even if they were less, was something he loved. Time was closing on him, and he knew but didn't know why. It was just a feeling before that he needed to do everything before he couldn't do anything. But now the feeling is getting stronger and stronger slowly, telling him that he needs to enjoy as much as he can before he loses it all. But what would he lose? As long as it is not his freedom, his friends, his family, he is ready to give anything so that the feeling goes away, the uneasiness. Can't sleep? A voice asked, who he knew was Zoro. No, Luffy said in a gentle voice, which was so unlike the teen. How did you know that my friends were there? Zoro asked, leaning on the railing and looking at the reflection of the moon which shone with all its glory on the transparent water. The winds told me, Luffy said, his eyes never leaving the vast body of the ocean. Zoro turned his head towards the boy, who said the answer as if it was a fact. What do you mean? Zoro asked again. He didn't want to be nosy in his captain's business, but the fact that Luffy was back to be mysterious was something that Zoro couldn't handle. He wanted to piece the puzzles. There were too many questions that lingered in his mind, but the fact that Luffy saved his friends was something he was grateful for. She. Luffy laughed, the solemn atmosphere and mood all gone from the face of the teen. He laughed carefree and untroubled as if there was nothing that could ever think to stop him. Zoro thinks too much. Zoro turned to look at his captain, making his breath hitch in his throat. Red eyes not golden red which he swears he had seen were back and staring at his soul, making him freeze. No ill feelings were coming from the boy, but he knew that beyond those eyes was a power that he couldn't even imagine. When the time comes, you'll know Zoro. There was something else in his captain's smile. It was too big and dare he say a little strained. What was Luffy thinking? What is he? That makes him mysterious and gives such a powerful aura. That can make any enemy shudder in fear? Zoro could only nod at the answer which he was given. There was just this feeling that if he tried to ask something more and by chance Luffy gave some absurd answer, he wouldn't be spared, especially when his captain is so naive and truthful. A cold chill ran down his spine, making him realize that all he felt was the truth. The next day passed normally, Luffy trying to befriend Usopp, who had small scary feelings within him and trying to play with him. Zoro doing his usual trainings or napping anywhere he got a place. Nami making her sea charts and cooking in between. If someone asked why she was cooking, her only answer would be that growing kids need food, unlike grown-ups. So, yeah, Luffy was getting free meals from Nami, even if they were less and the others needed to pay for it. Yosaku was resting in the guest room while Johnny made him useful by staying in the crow's nest and looking for the restaurant they were out to search for. We're finally here, Johnny shouted from the lookout the other day when the pink fish-type ship started appearing on the horizon. What do you think, everyone? So cool. Luffy was the first one to give any reaction to the ship, having stopped in his midway run from Usopp, who was it, and chasing after him. Whoa, Usopp said the next, colliding on Luffy and looking at the ship restaurant before him. It's lovely, Nami said, her hands clasped together. Not bad, Zoro said with a smirk, putting his swords back in their place. Just like we told you, right? Yosaku said, standing beside Johnny with a grin. Before anyone could reply, a sudden noise caught their attention to their other side. The Marines? Usopp squeaked as he was the first one to see the ship. I have never seen that pirate, flared Marine said from his ship. He was wearing iron knuckles in his hands. I'm the lieutenant of the Marine headquarters known as Iron Fist Full Body. Who's your captain? Name yourself. I'm Luffy. Luffy stepped forward with a large grin on his face. We just painted our flag 2 days ago." The Marine lieutenant blinked his eyes at Luffy in shock and then looked at the pirate flag and promptly burst into peals of laughter. "What the fuck? Are you lot insane to declare a kid as a captain?" The Marine laughed, insulting the kid's crew. "I'm not a kid," Luffy yelled at the Marine with sharp teeth. Yeah. The next you will say you're a god," the Marine said, wiping the stray tear that came out due to his pathetic joke. "Shut up," Zoro growled beside Luffy, making the teen come out of his trance of staring with his wide owlish eyes at the Marine. "It doesn't concern you." "Whatever," the Marine said, reconsidering if there was a joke going on. "Pirates are pirates regardless their ages," he mumbled to himself, before scanning the deck of the said pirate ship. "Wait a minute, I think I have seen you two somewhere," the Marine said, looking at the bounty hunter duo, ignoring the glares he was getting from another pirate hunter. "If I remember correctly, you're small-time bounty hunters," the Marine said with his hands in his pockets. "Yosaku and Johnny, so, you two have been finally caught by pirates?" he asked, raising an eyebrow at the duo. How pathetic can they be, if they were defeated by the small-time pirate crew, whose name and flag he even doesn't know? "Hey, Yosaku, I think someone needs some kicking," Johnny said, looking at Yosaku. "Well, we can't let him go away with this, even if it doesn't fetch a single belly. We need to teach him to keep his mouth shut," Yosaku replied, and with that, the two duo promptly jumped on Full Body, who was quick to beat them up and throw to the merry back. "You sure you aren't super weak?" Luffy asked, crouching down to them. This Marine just had a big mouth and not any real strength within him. "And no, it's just that guy's not too shabby himself," Yosaku said through his bloodied self. "It was a close one," Johnny tried to add his point. "The hell are you two doing?" Zoro asked, looking at his friends, who were sprawled on the deck. "Darling, let's go now." An extra sweet voice came from the Marine deck, making the onlookers see a pretty woman holding Full Body's arm. "Ah, yes," Full Body said, and then looked at the kid pirates once more. "Consider yourselves lucky that I'm on break." He turned to the other Marines and ordered them to sink the boat. "Yes, sir." That caught everyone's attention, and they went to the railing to see the cannon being pointed towards them. Usopp shrieked in terror while Nami's eyes widened and ran off to take cover with Johnny and Yosaku. She hesitated a bit, wanting to take Luffy too, but she remembered the freakish strength of the teen, who had defeated some good names of the East Blue with very little moves, and took off to hide. Zoro placed a hand on his sword, ready to fight with Luffy, but that wasn't required. He fired. Usopp shrieked, crouching down and holding his head with his hands. "Leave it to me," Luffy said with a grin, and ran in front and stood on the railing. Gomo no." He flashed a grin to the Marines, who were looking at him with surety that he would die a painful death. "Catch!" The cannonball rested in his palm. "The hell?" Usopp, Yosaku and Johnny's jaws hit the deck, with the Marines following soon after realization struck them of what happened. She. Luffy laughed, tossing the cannonball and catching it with his another hand. "This sure is fun." Full Body stopped in his path to look at the teen, who was freaking playing with the cannonball as if it was a regular ball. He had judged the kid wrong by his appearance, but still the kid had no chance against him. So, he brushed it off and moved on with his date to the restaurant and left his juniors to handle the mess. They're capable of that, at least. Luffy suddenly looked at the Marines with a devilish grin. "I'm hungry, so you can have your cannonball back," he said, and threw the cannonball with high speed to the Marines, who couldn't comprehend anything and went off like a bomb easily. "Man, I sure am hungry," Luffy said with a pout, rubbing his stomach with his fingers, uncaring about the looks which he was getting from some of the crew. "Let's go to the Batie," Luffy said, breaking everyone out of their shock and shaking their head fondly, except Yosaku and Johnny, who were still speechless. "It's Baratie, Luffy." Tying their little boat to the small outer deck of the fish-shaped restaurant, they finally reached Baratie, the place with fighting cooks. They would either be going from here or have a cook in tow with them. But knowing Luffy, he would eventually make a cook join them. That was what Zoro was sure about his captain. Meat. I want lots of meat," Luffy chanted cheerfully, the others following behind him. Nami was shaking her head with a soft smile grazing her lips at the childish boy, while Zoro had a small smile on his face too, wanting to get sake or booze. Usopp was reciprocating Luffy's childishness with his smile. The boy was no longer afraid of the teen. He was coming to a mental acceptance that Luffy is freaking stronger than anyone he knows, even if he is younger than him. His captain is childish and won't harm him. That was what he kept explaining himself. Walking inside, they were met with tension hanging in the air followed by loud shouting. The diners were all staring at a table where two people were arguing. There was a blonde guy, who wore a black suit, and the Marine captain who had threatened them, but left with his date. At the sight of the angry Marine, Nami and Usopp were about to hide behind Zoro and Luffy, but they didn't require it. "I'm a paying customer," the Marine lieutenant yelled, standing over the broken pieces of the table that he had broken a few seconds ago. "For a damn cook, don't you have lots of attitude? Full body, stop." The blonde date of the Marine tried, but it was all in vain, as it went unheard. "Can money fill your stomach?" The blonde waiter, with a cigarette in his mouth, asked, feeling annoyed by the Marine. "Ah, we need to stop him. Stop the assistant head chief Sanji." The cooks from the Baratie shouted in unison. "Shouldn't they be stopping the Marine?" Zoro asked with a raised eyebrow, his one hand on the hilt of his swords. "Nah, he is strong," Luffy replied, looking at the fight. He had a feeling that the cook which he wanted for his ship had been found. "Oh," Nami added from beside Usopp, who was looking at the fight. They didn't need to discuss anymore, as the cook raised his leg and with a kick, the Marine lieutenant started bleeding. He lost. He was defeated with his pride and pompousness. The Marine had also lost the remaining dignity that he had among the diners in the restaurant after the conversation with the blonde cook. "Remember this," the blonde cook said through his cigarette, breaking the silence which had encompassed the restaurant. "Going against a cook on the seas is tantamount to death." He threw the Marine aside and turned to him, finishing his speech, "And don't you dare waste food." "What?" A loud yelling caught the crew's attention and they turned to see another chef coming in. The man was clearly angry at the blonde cook, and seeing the bloodied Marine on the ground his anger spiked even more. "You again, Sanji?" the man yelled, pointing his index finger at the blonde cook, called Sanji. "What the hell do you think you are doing to our customers?" the new cook asked angrily. "Not only that, that man is also a Marine lieutenant." "What is it, shitty cook?" Sanji asked, turning towards the new chef. "Don't call my name as if I am your friend." That clearly angered the man more. "I ain't gonna stand by and let you call me a shitty cook," the new cook yelled in retortion. "It's a cook's duty to serve their customers. Just how will you explain your act?" "So, what if he's the customer? He dared to waste food and insult a cook," Sanji said, flicking his hand to get rid of the Marine's blood. "I was just teaching him a lesson." "What's with this place?" Full Body asked tremblingly. "How can there be a restaurant that treats its customers like this? I'll close down the restaurant. I'll report this restaurant to the government." "That bastard!" Luffy cursed, feeling the same anger coming from the blonde cook, if not more. But it wasn't his fight, not right now the least. "You're going to report us now? Well, then I guess I have no choice but to kill you right now." The blonde cook returned the threat to the Marine. Luffy smiled wide, deciding that this guy would be their cook and no one else. He won't take anyone else in place of him. "We got a cook," Luffy announced to his crew, who absent-mindedly nodded, already having predicted it. "What?" the Marine asked in disbelief. "No, stop," the cooks from Baratie yelled and ran to the angry blonde who wanted nothing more than to beat the man to a bloody pulp. The little Straw Hat crew watched the drama while sitting at a table. Luffy was getting impatient. He wanted food, but the fight was good, but food. "It just gets me so angry," Sanji growled from his restraint. "Not bad," Zoro commented, whistling a bit, as he counted the number of cooks required to restrain the blonde. Moreover, the guy has the guts to go against a Marine. He was surely suitable to be a pirate. Hold him down or he might seriously kill him, to see a spoiled son of a bitch like you. "Stop, Sanji. You've gone too far," one of the chefs, who got a kick to his face, yelled at the blonde who was fighting in the restraint where he was held. "Just who the damn hell do you think you are?" Sanji barked at the Marine, trying to reach him with one of his hands in a vain attempt. What's with this guy?" Full Body thought, creeping back from the blonde who looked ready to murder him, without thinking twice. "Owner," another one of the chefs holding Sanji yelled, seeing a blonde man with braided nose hair coming out of a room. "Please stop Sanji for us." "Sanji, are you running wild in my restaurant again?" the owner asked, coming in full view of the crew, making Luffy's eyes turn to literal stars. The man had a peg leg and his mustache looked so awesome. So cool, Luffy whispered enthusiastically, making Usopp silently agree with his thoughts and Nami and Zoro shake their heads fondly at his childishness. "Shut up, shitty geezer," Sanji said, calming down a bit and shrugging off the cooks from him. He stood there glaring at the owner. But Luffy could tell that there was no real heat behind those glares. It made him reminisce of Ace and Sabo when they would have an argument or fight and glare at each other but never meant true harm to the other. "It's exactly as it seems, sir," the chef, Patty, who had come earlier said, and this time Sanji beat up some idiot marine lieutenant. "Are you trying to ruin my restaurant, you little shit?" The owner kicked the blonde and then turned towards the marine and kicked him too. "Get the hell out of here, you damn marine." Full Body rolled off to the side, holding his bloodied self. He couldn't digest the fact that he was so easily insulted by the cook and owner of this damn place. And the fact that he, a customer, a marine, someone who has enough power to make this place rot, is being treated this way. But one thought stuck up to him. Were these guys truly cooks? 'Cause like hell he'll believe it. This ship just gave him enough vibes and beatings to declare it a pirate ship. He was starting to sit up when one of his subordinates came rushing in. "Lieutenant Full Body." Full Body turned towards the bloody marine who looked bloodied and had soot on his face and uniform. "It's an emergency." "Just what the hell is happening?" Then his eyes fell on the kid crew, which he had underestimated, and he found the source of the soot and blood on the marine. He gritted his teeth when the kid captain teased him with his tongue out. "Forgive me, sir, but he escaped from the ship's prison." That stilled his thoughts of teaching the kid a lesson. He escaped, he fucking escaped. The underling of Pirate Krieg has escaped. It took 7 of us to just capture him in the first place, but now he is gone. The marine frantically explained the situation to him, making Full Body straighten his back instantly. "That's impossible. He shouldn't even have the strength to move," Full Body said through gritted teeth. "He was on the verge of death when we captured him 3 days ago, not to mention the scrap of food since then." A member of Krieg's crew. The same Pirate Krieg whose crew is said to be the strongest in all of the East Blue. The diners had already started panicking in the restaurant. "Who's this Krieg guy?" Luffy asked, tilting his head to the side in confusion. The name did sound as if he had heard it, but he doesn't remember much about the guy. "He's the—" Usopp got interrupted in his explanation as a loud bang came from the door, making him stop. The marine who was trying to explain the situation was lying dead on the floor with another man coming slowly from the entrance. The diners began running here and there. It gave Luffy a free pass to have their food and not complain anymore about his hungry stomach to Nami, who sat beside him. Zoro followed Luffy's example and picked up a good number of bottles from abandoned tables and started drinking. "One customer, coming this way," Patty announced, seeing the silhouette of the pirate coming in. "He better not start any trouble in my restaurant," the owner said through his teeth. "Swohwe is a paiwate?" Luffy asked with food in his mouth, getting a nod from Zoro. The man staggered forward, holding the pistol in his hand. "Anything will do. Just bring me some food," he said. Luffy could feel how weak he was just because of a lack of food. "This place is a restaurant, right?" the pirate man asked, sitting on an empty chair. "Welcome, you shit-faced bastard," Patty greeted, trying to act polite, but came off way too rude. "I'm going to say this one more time. I'm a customer, so bring me food," the underling of Krieg said with his feet resting on the top of the table. "That cook is as good as dead," Full Body gave his point of view, only to be proved wrong. "Pardon me, dumbass, but do you have any money?" Patty asked, rubbing his hands. "You accept lead?" the Krieg underling asked, pointing the loaded gun to the cook's head. "So you don't have any money?" Patty stated with a bored expression, unfazed by the gun pointed at his head. He didn't wait for an answer from the pirate and slammed him on the table, breaking it in the process and shocking some of the diners while some started smiling, feeling safe. "That dumbass broke the table," the owner muttered angrily. "He's strong," Usopp stated, looking at the cook. Luffy nodded, eating from another abandoned plate. "If you can't pay the bill, then you ain't no customer," Patty said, making the customers and cooks cheer up. "Nice going, cook. Show that pirate who's the boss, Patty." The cheering was accompanied by whistles, making Patty grin. A rumble was heard by both Patty and the Straw Hats, making them look at the fallen man who was on his knees holding his stomach. "Oh, is that your stomach rumbling?" Patty asked him as if the man himself didn't notice it. "That was just me farting, you bastard. So hurry up, and bring me some food," the pirate demanded once more, glaring at the cook. Luffy pushed away his plate, not wanting to eat anymore, feeling the pain coming from the hungry and starved pirate. He had seen and saved many people during his stay in Baltigo, who were malnourished and wanted nothing but some food. He could feel the same pain from the man who was down. He might not know how it feels to be starved, but he knows that he wouldn't like it. "If you are not paying, then get the hell out of here," Patty shouted, making Luffy cringe inwardly. "This is a restaurant for paying customers. I ain't giving a single crumb of bread to a broken-ass pirate like you." He kicked the pirate out, not noticing the marine who was beat by Sanji walking away dreadfully and swearing to never come back here. "Now then, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your food," Patty said with a smile on his face, making the diners return to their places. "I'll be right back," Luffy stated, getting up from the table and going out, feeling Sanji coming out too. "What? Where are you going, Luffy?" Nami asked in surprise to the teen. Luffy didn't reply and went off, leaving the crew to watch him from afar. "Might get some more booze while we are here," Zoro said with a shrug, but kept an eye on his captain, not wanting him to drown if he gets near the railing. Hell knows how the boy can get into trouble even if he wouldn't voluntarily want it. "And food," Usopp added, forgetting his previous fear. Meanwhile, Luffy climbed onto the upper part of the fish-shaped restaurant and walked over to the place where he could sense the pirate. He just got there in time to see Sanji placing a plate of fried rice and a glass of water before the hungry man. "Eat," Sanji said, sitting on the deck with his back leaning on the railing of the ship and taking out a cigarette. The smell of the cooked rice made the pirate look up from the ground, but his pride held him back. "Shut up. Even when I'm down and out, I won't take charity from others. Take this food away, now," he told Sanji, turning his head away with his teeth clenched, visibly struggling not to pounce on the food. "Stop whining and eat it already. To me, anyone who's hungry is a customer," Sanji stated, making Luffy smile wider. He really has chosen a good cook for his crew, and now all that is required is to make him join him in his journey to be the king of pirates. "Sorry, but I'm not a customer," the pirate stated with his gritted teeth and continued to deny the food. "How large and cruel the ocean is," Sanji started, making Luffy think about it. His mother was cruel, that is true, but she can be gentle too. How scary it is to lose food and water on the ocean. How hard it is, Sanji said, looking far away, and Luffy felt that the man was not lying. He was speaking from experience. "I can understand how a hungry person feels more than anyone. You can die for your pride if you want, but if you eat and survive, don't you think there's a future for you?" That crumbled the remaining strength in the pirate to not eat. His shaking hands held the edges of the plates, and with tears streaming down his face he attacked the food like a wild animal, who had not eaten for months. "I don't know what to say," the pirate said honestly, gulping down the food. "I've never had such a delicious meal in my entire life. I'm so grateful. I thought I was going to die. I thought it was all over for me." Luffy smiled wide at the happy emotions coming from both the cook and his diner. "It's damn good, right?" Sanji asked with a smile of his own. She. Luffy laughed freely, happy that the pirate finally got food, happy that he finally got a good cook. "You finally got some food. That's good," Luffy said to the eating man, and then turned towards the blonde. "Hey cook, join my crew. Be the cook for my pirate ship," Luffy chirped happily, not minding the shocked expression on the said people's faces. "You're a pirate?" both the underling of Krieg pirate and Sanji asked in unison. Luffy hopped down from the railing into the people below the deck and claimed a seat on the railing of the ship. "Yep, I'm," Luffy answered truthfully. "I don't care who you are, just don't do anything stupid to this restaurant. The owner of this place used to be the cook of a pretty infamous crew," Sanji said, brushing off the invitation and more worried about the crew that the kid might have, if any. "Yeah, I know, Red Leg Zeph, right?" Luffy asked nonchalantly. "Yeah, the restaurant's like a treasure to the damn geezer, and the rest of the cooks who came to work here out of their admiration for that geezer are all hot-blooded and crude enough to be pirates," Sanji continued in the same way. "But it is quite right considering all the pirates that frequently visit these parts. Not a quiet moment in this place, Eh? Luffy asked with a wide grin on his face. Yeah, but it's a daily routine for us, Sanji replied. There've even been some guests lately who come to see the pirate and the cooks duke it out. 'Cause of that all the waiters got scared and ran away. Eh, whatever, Luffy said, not caring about the information. Join my crew, he asked, looking at Sanji, Unki's golden red. Sanji was about to say no to the kid, but as soon as he turned his head towards the said kid, he stilled. He froze. He felt as if he stood naked before the kid, who was reading his whole history, his past, his life up until now, from his reddish golden eyes. How the heck did the kid even change his irises? He was sure that the kid had brown doe eyes, not those red golden eyes, which looked holy and ethereal. The kid was no joke, that was what Sanji was sure of now. He held powers that would be enough to make him greet his death. He felt vulnerable in front of the teen, but at the same time, there was something in those red golden eyes that made his heart want to see it and look for it. Sanji was about to remove his gaze from the teen's eyes when the teen blinked. His brown owlish eyes were looking at him like he was the most amazing person to ever live. Sanji took a stuttering breath and took a swig from his cigarette, processing the feelings that he had just faced in a matter of 5 seconds and calming himself. I'll have to refuse that offer, Sanji said. There was a part of him that hesitated to speak the sentence. Maybe that was due to fear of finding out what lay behind the laid-off persona of the boy, but he felt that he wouldn't be harmed or rather killed if he said the truth. I've got my own reason to keep working here, Sanji said, looking at him. No, I refuse, Luffy shot back. What? Sanji asked, not getting what the boy meant, forgetting his earlier thoughts easily on him. I refuse your refusal, Luffy retorted, crossing his arms on his chest and pouting, like a kid he was. You're a good cook, so we can be pirates together. Hey, at least hear me out, Sanji said, trying to reason with the boy. He is not like the ones to lash on kids without a proper reason, but something told him the boy won't be giving up on him easily. Fine then, what's your reason? Luffy asked with a pout. No need to tell you, Sanji replied, making Luffy comically fall on the deck. But you told me to just hear you out, he replied, getting up and plopping on the railing again. All I meant was that you should hear other people's opinions when talking. Sorry to cut in the conversation, but the pirate who had finished eating said before Luffy could speak again. My name's Jin. I'm a member of the Krieg Pirates. The pirate, now, Jin, introduced himself. So you said you're a pirate? Can I ask what your objective is? I'm going to be the king of pirates. That's why I'll go to the Grand Line, Luffy announced with his hands in the air. That shocked Jin, but he quickly composed himself. If you're still looking for a cook, I'm assuming you don't have many people on your crew yet, right? With him, Luffy said, pointing at Sanji. That makes 5. Why are you counting me in? Sanji growled angrily. You don't seem to be a bad person, Jin continued, not wanting the kid to die young. So, let me give you a piece of advice. He turned seriously and looked at the kid. Give up on going to the Grand Line. You're still young, no need to recklessly rush into things. Besides, the Grand Line is just one part of all the oceans in this world. If you still want to be a pirate, there's plenty of other seas for you to roam out there. But I want to go to paradise and the New World, Luffy stated, not considering that he is practically revealing secrets which he shouldn't. Paradise? New World? Jin asked in disbelief. What the heck are you even sprouting? Sanji asked nonchalantly, chewing the end of his cigarette. She. Nothing, Luffy just waved it off. Whatever. Jin said, looking the other way. But I still suggest you not go to Grand Line. He gulped, remembering the hellish events which followed in the Grand Line to him and the crew. It's so terrifying. It's not terrifying, Luffy said with his hands on his hips. You don't know since you have never been there, Jin stated, trying to make his point. But I have lived in the Grand Line for more than a decade, Luffy said in an obvious tone, making Jin and Sanji both look at him in surprise. Jin didn't believe that, even if Sanji seemed to consider it. A child like the kid escaping from Grand Line with his life and no obvious scars? That's impossible. Don't joke around, kid, Jin said, making Luffy frown. But I really am from there and I'm not a kid, Luffy said with a pout and suddenly started to sweat. He waved his hand and said, I am not giving any more information to you. Whatever, Jin replied, not wanting to think about the hellish place he had been. Nay, you seem to know about Grand Line. Have you gone there? Luffy asked, looking at the man with his dough-brown eyes filled with curiosity. No, I don't know anything. I don't understand anything about it. That's exactly why I fear it, Jin stated, holding his head and shaking a bit in fear. For an underling of Krieg, you are quite wimpy, Sanji stated with his hands in his pockets, looking for another cigarette. Who's Krieg? Luffy asked, tilting his head. He had asked the question to his crew, but he wasn't able to get the answer. You haven't heard of him? Don Krieg is said to be the strongest and most evil pirate in the East Blue, Sanji told Luffy, who realized why the name rang a bell. It's true. My captain's the Don of a fleet that controls the captains of 50 pirate ships. We have more than 5,000 men in our ranks, Jin added, though Luffy didn't seem intimidated at all. Seeing this, Jin frowned and decided to give up on the kid. It would not be his fault if the kid died. In any case, I've warned Ya, he said as he hopped onto the boat, which was sitting on the water. See ya then. I'm still gonna go to the Grand Line, Luffy said stubbornly, hoping from the railing to the deck, to see off the pirate. Jin laughed. Well, you're free to do what you want. It's not like I have the right to stop that. Jin replied to Luffy and then turned to Sanji. And Sanji, thank you so much for the food. You're my savior. That meal was really the best I've ever had. Would it be alright to come here to eat again? Sure, anytime, Sanji replied. Hey, Sanji. Luffy and Sanji both turned to see the owner standing on the upper floor, looking at them. Geezer, Sanji said with a sigh. There you are. The man said as if he wasn't here from the very beginning and acted as if he noticed the empty plate on the ground just right now. Go Jin, Sanji told the still waiting pirate, who was hesitating. Sorry, just because you gave me food you're gonna get scolded, Jin apologized, feeling ashamed. Well, Sanji started picking up the empty plate, spoon and glass and threw them in the water. How can I get scolded when there's no proof? Jin looked close to tears but nodded and bowed down to the man. Thank you, Sanji, for everything. Don't you get caught again, Jin, Sanji waved off the man. Sanji, get back to work, the owner shouted with a small smile on his face, yet his voice came off as demanding as he wanted. She, Luffy laughed gleefully, feeling the owner funny as he loved the blonde but didn't show it, and the same with Sanji. His stomach made its hunger known to him, making him grin wide. It's time to eat now. See ya soon, Sanji. Sanji wanted to retort, but seeing the boy was just an energetic kid, who was also apparently a pirate, a powerful one, if the earlier encounter points to something, he let him go. Luffy, you are back. Usopp waved to Luffy to show the new table in which they were sitting and had already ordered food. You guys started eating without me? Luffy pouted as he saw the plates filled with rice, vegetables, fruits and whatnot. There was even meat on some plates. We got something for you too, Nami said with a smile and pointed to the empty seat left for him, making him grin and sit beside her. Nami's the best, Luffy chirped as he was given a plate of meat, which was untouched and waiting for him to be gobbled. He absently noted the vegetables in the food but didn't mind much as it also had meat in it. Hey, Captain? Zoro asked playfully to his kid captain. Sometimes, it felt good to indulge in the boy's silly antics and get a sunny bright grin and carefree laugh in response. It always brings a smile to his face and makes him forget his worries. Luffy gasped and stopped in the middle of gobbling his steak. No, Zoro and Usopp are the best too. That made the said people flush with embarrassment. Anyways, where were you? Nami asked curiously, seeing that the other two were in no condition to reply. She understood that as she had also reacted the same way. And it doesn't help when Luffy is so adorable and has such a sunny smile which could even put the sun to shame. Oh, I was trying to recruit Sanji, Luffy answered between his bites of food. Did he agree? Usopp asked, sipping his tea. He'll. Oh, blessed are the oceans for bringing me this fine day. A voice cut Luffy off and presented Sanji with his arms stretched wide. Oh love, laugh if you will, at my poor self who cannot endure his tortuous passions. With his hands on his heart and eyes literally changing to heart, Sanji continued. As long as I can be with you, I'm prepared to walk across any path, be it the path of a pirate or a devil. But alas, 'tis tragic there is such a great obstacle standing between the two of us, Sanji finished at last, getting sweat drops in return from Zoro and Usopp and the thoughts about which crazy love cook was gonna join them. By obstacle, do you mean me, Sanji? Another gruff voice asked, which was of the owner, who was leaning on a chair and looking at the blonde. Damn it, geezer, Sanji cursed, turning his head to the man. It's a good chance. Just go and become a pirate. I don't need a guy like you in my restaurant. The owner responded with a bored expression. You damn geezer. I'm the assistant chef here, Sanji said with his hands in his pockets. What do you mean I am not needed? You cause too much trouble with the guests, and if they happen to be female you swoon over them, Zeph said, crossing his arms over his chest. You can't even cook a decent meal. You're just a dead weight and none of the cooks even like you. Luffy couldn't understand why the man was lying through his teeth and agitating Sanji, but he remembers his dad saying that some people lie for a greater reason and he shouldn't point them out. Maybe that is what the owner was doing, lying for some greater reason. I don't care if you want to be a pirate or something else. Just get the hell out of my restaurant. The owner finished, making Sanji angrier, and turned fully towards the owner. Is that you wanted to tell me all along? Sanji asked, feeling hurt. But he refused to show it and walked towards the owner. I could overlook everything, but I won't let you say rubbish about my cooking, he yelled the last bit and grabbed the shirt of the head chef. Grabbing the collar of the head chef? The owner asked with an eyebrow raised, and slapped away Sanji's hands from his collar and threw him to the Straw Hat's table, who was listening silently. They had already sensed that and had lifted their plates from the table, not wanting them to get destroyed as collateral. Damn it, Sanji cursed, sitting up on the floor. You can try as hard as you want, but I am not gonna leave. I'll continue to cook here until the day you die. I ain't dying, the owner replied, turning his back towards the fallen assistant cook. I will live for another 100 years. Pretty mouthy for a damn geezer, aren't you? Sanji muttered, getting back up and dusting his suit pants. You got the permission, you can be a pirate now, Luffy chirped, not minding Sanji's anger which was flaring up. Shut up, Sanji yelled at Luffy, whose smile didn't falter even a bit and ended up laughing. Sanji turned to see Nami still sitting on the chair and quickly set the table properly. He flared his nose and started serving Nami as a gentleman. Forgive me for the ruckus, my lady. As an apology, please have this fruit Macedonia and this glass of Grand Marnier, Sanji said, pouring the said drink and presenting another side dish with fruits to the beautiful orange-haired young lady. Oh, thank you so much, Nami said, taking the glass gleefully, enjoying the treatment. You are so nice. Oh, it's nothing, Sanji responded as a gentleman. What about us? Usopp asked, taking a seat. This is gender discrimination, I'll sue you, you stupid love cook. I already gave you some tea, Sanji retorted, changing his mood from the love cook to a pissed cook. At least you can say thanks for it. What, you gonna start something? Usopp inquired, with his eyes bulging a bit. Get him, Zoro, he said. He wanted to ask Luffy to do it, but he didn't want to make fun of himself by asking the youngest. Do it yourself, Zoro said, sweat dropping a bit and continuing to drink his sake and looking at the stack of plates that were beginning to pile up beside Luffy's current plate. You haven't even cleared the plates, Usopp said, changing the subject and pointing to the plate which still had mushrooms in it. You haven't finished it yet, shithead, Sanji replied. I left those on purpose. I was once poisoned by it when I was a kid, and since then I hate mushrooms, Usopp said back, his long nose poking the blonde cook's forehead. Well, this ain't poisoned, long nose, Sanji retorted back. Please don't fight just 'cause of me, Nami said dramatically, trying to act charming by batting her eyes at the two males. Anything for you, miss, Sanji immediately said, leaving a pissed off Usopp behind. Just who the hell are you taking the side of? Usopp asked, with his teeth getting sharpened edge. By the way, Mr. Cook, Nami said, looking at Sanji, who was too close to her. The food is too expensive for me here. Then it shall be free of charge for you, miss, Sanji replied instantly, mesmerized by the sweet girl hugging him. Thank you so much, Nami replied, grinning. You're paying though, Sanji said, turning towards the rest of the boys. For once, he really wondered how the stack of plates had increased, since it is not humanly possible for even the long nose, Mosshead and the boy to eat so much at once. He wouldn't count the young lady in, since she is a woman and she is practically not eating anything but drinking. It doesn't matter as long as they pay and do not cause any ruckus in the restaurant. with Luffy stubbornly declaring that Sanji would be the only one to join them as the cook. The crew stayed docked near the Baratie. Each day went by Luffy trying to convince the love cook to join them and Nami getting free meals from the blonde. Zoro would sometimes stay on the Merry training himself, taking a nap or sometimes coming to the restaurant to have some good alcohol. Nami would try different clothes on Luffy daily, making him dress up to her heart's content and Luffy happily allowed her to do it. Usopp would hang out with Yosaku and Johnny sometimes, telling them his long tales, and sometimes Luffy would be there to hear them. In all, things were going smoothly but everyone was feeling antsy and wanted to set sail already. Luffy even considered kidnapping the cook and running off to the Grand Line but he could not do that. He would be a hypocrite if he did it but he absently realized why Whitebeard liked to kidnap some people and make them join him. Still, he is not gonna kidnap Sanji against his will and will wait until he decides to join them. He didn't want anyone else as their chef. He only wants Sanji. It was after 2 days when a surprising incident took place in the Baratie. The diners who were sitting near the window enjoying the view of the ocean freaked out, dropping their glasses of wine or the forks they were holding. "It's Don Krieg's pirate ship," one of them yelled loud for the whole restaurant to hear. The other diners instantly left their seats to confirm the sight for themselves. The sight of the flag with 2 hourglasses at each side. Even the cooks were panicking. Some were even blaming Patty as he was the one to beat the Krieg underling and deny him food. The cooks were starting to believe that the pirate ship was coming to avenge that pirate. "This is really bad, shouldn't we be running away?" Usopp shrieked looking at the ship from one of the windows of the restaurant. "Let's set sail immediately, Luffy," Nami said in a pleading tone, not wanting to be killed by the man. "Jin must have come to repay his debt to you, Sanji," Luffy said to the blonde cook who was standing beside him and looking at the ship docking at the Baratie. The ship was huge and was shadowing the Baratie even, but it wasn't as big as the Moby. "Somehow I don't think that's the case," Sanji said smoking from his cigarette. For once Zoro felt that he could agree with the love cook on this. "That ship. It's complete shambles," Zoro said looking at the tattered sails and the chipped off wood. "To turn a gigantic galleon of that size into that sad state. That's no work of humans. They must have been caught up in a natural disaster," Sanji added. Somehow Luffy didn't feel that, if the person who was nearing by had something to say in the matter. After a few moments of wait the door to the restaurant was kicked open. Standing before them was Jin supporting his captain, Don Krieg. "Sorry for intruding. But could I have some water and food?" The captain, who had purple hair and was wearing a black coat begged. "If it's money you want, I've got plenty." "What the heck?" Patty said not believing at the sight of the dangerous and evil pirate literally begging. "That weak, worn-out looking guy is Krieg. He looks starved," Luffy mumbled. "Wonder what happened," Sanji said his thoughts out loud. "Don Krieg," Jin shouted as he saw his captain fall down due to weakness. He turned to the cooks in the Baratie and started begging for his captain. "I am begging you please give him food and water. Please save my captain, or he will die at this rate." Patty started laughing loudly, feeling that the man before him was of no threat since he couldn't even practically stand on his own. Perfect. Just perfect. So this is what the infamous pirate Don Krieg looks like. "We've money this time. We are paying customers," Jin said defending his captain's dignity. "Hey, contact the Marines immediately," Patty said to one of the cooks. "This is the perfect chance for the government to arrest him. Don't let the morsel have a single bite." The crowd of diners started agreeing with Patty and yelled out their thoughts of not letting the man get any food so he could get back to his feet and attack them or worse kill them. Even most of the cooks were in agreement with it. Don Krieg got down to his knees, gritting his teeth at the humiliation he was feeling. "I won't do anything. If you give me food, I promise to leave quietly. So, please help me." Luffy felt that Craig was lying through his teeth but he was really ally hungry. He looked to his side, seeing Sanji quietly slip out of the room to the kitchen and felt a smile come upon his face as he understood what the man was about to do. "Don Krieg, please stop," Jin yelled, with tears in his eyes. "A great man like you shouldn't be lowering his head. It's shameful." Krieg ignored Jin's words and felt anger run through his veins. Still, he needed food and he didn't care if he had to beg for it. Once he is up, he won't excuse these petty excuses of cooks and pests of the crowd openly gawking at him. "I'm begging you," He stated, plopping his head to the ground. "I don't mind if it's leftovers or whatever. Please, just give me anything." "Anything," Don Krieg repeated, making Jin clench his eyes shut at the embarrassing sight. "Trying to earn some sympathy?" Patty asked, raising his eyebrows and not falling for the begging at all. "Hey, move Patty," Sanji said, holding a plate of cooked rice and a bottle of alcohol. He kicked Patty, who was standing on his way to the starved man. "Here, Jin. Give this to him." He presented the food to the starved man. "Sanji," Jin said in shock, making Krieg lift his head from the ground and snatch the food from the blonde and eat it like a feral animal. "Thank you," Krieg said through his tears, cherishing the feeling of fresh and warm food in his stomach after a lot of time. "Hey, Sanji. Take that back this instant." A cook yelled at Sanji, pointing his trembling finger at the man who was chugging down the alcohol and wolfing down the food. "Do you have any idea what kind of man he is? The ruler of the East Blue, the king of deceptions. That's Don Krieg for you." The chef continued, with his horrified eyes watching the pirate eat. He started disguising himself as a marine after escaping from prison. He then killed the marine officer in charge of the ship and took it over. That's how he became a pirate. Since then he attacked ports, towns, and other ships by hanging a marine flag, and when attacking his enemies, he hangs a white flag to attack them by surprise. The chef continued, sweating over at the sight of the evil pirate. He's a man who'll stop at nothing to win, and that's how he made his way to the top. His strength ain't no joke either. Do you really think he'll leave after eating? That's utterly impossible. The chef was paling as the pirate was eating more and more. Letting a demon like him starve to death is for the good of the world. As soon as the chef finished his words, Don Krieg stood up to punch the blonde who had served him the delicious meal, only to be stopped by a straw hat wearing boy, who appeared out of nowhere, stopping his punch in midway. "What the heck?" Usopp and Nami shrieked, as they were sure Luffy was just beside them just a second ago. "So he revealed his fangs at last," Zoro said with a bloodthirsty grin. "Luffy," Sanji said with wide eyes, looking at the boy smirking under his hat. "You got lucky, boy," Don Krieg said with his gruff voice, his fist still held in the boy's grasp. "Hey!" Luffy lifted his straw hat with his other hand to show his cold eyes to the man, freezing him momentarily. "Didon," Jin shouted. "This is different from what you promised. I guided you 'cause you promised to not harm anyone here." Jin felt betrayed that his Don had tried to harm the man who had saved them both. Unfortunately, he was ignored by the pirate captain. "Who do you think you even are?" Don Krieg said through his gritted teeth as he tried to pull his F in vain. He glared at the teen who held the power to restrain him but was overconfident in himself that he would beat him easily. "I'm Monkey D. Luffy. The man who will be the king of pirates," Luffy announced, punching the man's arms to the side and glaring at him. "Don't you dare hurt my cook." "Hey, stand back, kid," one of the cooks warned Luffy, even if he had easily held Krieg's punch easily, "or you'll be killed." "I'm not standing down, especially on this," Luffy said with a grin, not minding the shock coming from everyone in the restaurant. "Did you say something, little brat?" Krieg asked, laughing mockingly at the kid, even if he had successfully held his punch back. "I'll be nice enough to let your comment just now slide." "It's fine, you don't have to let it slide," Luffy said, crossing his arms on his chest, with a determined gaze. "I was only stating the truth." "This ain't a game," Krieg said, gritting his teeth. "Of course," Luffy said, nodding his head. He knows he needs to struggle and get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger to get the freedom that his heart desires. "You planning to fight Luffy?" Zoro asked, holding his white sword out. "Need a hand?" Even Usopp was looking confident, sitting beside Nami, who was silently sipping her drink. "Nah, it's fine. I can handle it," Luffy replied with a grin. Krieg started laughing at the sight of the crew the little brat possessed. "Those are your crewmates? A rather small bunch, aren't they?" "What? I have one more as well," Luffy said, pointing towards Sanji, who was silently looking at the duo talking. "Hey, don't count me in," Sanji retorted half-heartedly. "Don't joke with me, punk. Even my fleet of 50 ships and 5,000 pirates were utterly decimated by that devilish sea in just 7 days only because we lacked information," Krieg said, stating his loss loudly. He didn't care about the whispers which arose due to it. "You hear that just now?" Usopp asked, not wanting to go to Grand Line anymore. 50 ships gone in just a single week. We're no match for the Grand Line, Nami said with a shiver, concluding what Usopp wanted to say. Hey, sounds interesting, Zoro said with a smirk, knowing that Usopp and Nami were just afraid for a moment. Nice ship you've got here, Krieg said, dismissing the punk, who had narrowed his eyes at him, clearly watching his every move. He hates people who love to boost and not back their words like the boy. He was weak due to hunger. That was the only reason the boy was able to intercept his punch. I'll take it. I told you so. This is Krieg and now he is going to take over our ship. The cook who had explained all about Krieg yelled. Get out of the ship. The diners started running out of the restaurant, not wanting to be killed by the ruthless pirate. We have gotta get out of here before we get killed. Patty groaned, waking up at the commotion and saw Krieg standing in all his glory. Don Krieg, what about the promise? Jin asked hastily, not wanting to cause any harm to the restaurant, which Sanji loves. This time Jin didn't get ignored. He got held by his throat and harshly thrown to the ground. Shut up, Don said with a pissed-off attitude. I'll do whatever I want. Hey, Jin, are you alright? Sanji asked, looking at the fallen man. My ship's all worn out, so I've been wanting for a new one, Don Krieg said with a smirk, feeling invincible. Once my business is done with you, I'll finish you off. Right now, I have 100 men on my ship and they're all starving and critically wounded. So prepare enough food and water for them. You're asking us to willingly feed 100 pirates? Only for them to attack us in return? The same chef who had been doing the talking yelled. We refuse, the cooks and the Bharati told in unison. Refuse? Seems like we have a little misunderstanding. I was not asking whether or not, Krieg said through gritted teeth as he glared at the cooks. I'm ordering you and nobody disobeys me. Sanji, Jin said while lying on the ground. I'm so sorry, I didn't want this all to happen at all. Sanji, you bastard, it's 'cause of you that we're in this situation. Patty yelled, sitting up on the floor and turning to look at the said man. Where do you think you were even going? He yelled, seeing Sanji going towards the kitchen. To the kitchen, Sanji said, taking out his cigarette from his mouth for a bit. To prepare enough food for 100 people. That stunned the remaining people who were on the ship, which were the Bharati cooks and the Straw Hats. What? They asked at once, while Luffy spotted a wide smile on his face. He understood what Sanji was doing, while others clearly looked conflicted at Sanji's opinions on feeding the pirates. In an instant, the cooks in Bharati pointed their guns at Sanji, stopping him and making the Straw Hat crew gasp. Even Zoro was looking at Luffy, wanting to interfere, not because he cared for the love cook. It was only 'cause Luffy wanted him in the crew. Luffy shook his head, knowing that the cooks wouldn't shoot Sanji despite their warnings. Fine, shoot me if you want to stop me, Sanji said, spreading his arms, and ready to die for his ideals. I know they are nothing but s who aren't worth a dime saving, but to me, none of that matters. Thinking about whom to feed and whom not to is such a hassle, Sanji said with a smile. Shouldn't a cook be allowed to cook for anyone hungry? Isn't that ideal? For his words, Patty awarded him with a punch on his head. Hold him down, Patty said to the cooks who were already on it. Luffy felt something was about to happen and it would be better for them to not interfere right now. In his thoughts, he missed the rest of the conversation which Patty said and was snapped back to the reality when Patty shot Krieg with his bazooka. Krieg was blown off from the restaurant door and straight to outside. But Luffy knew the man was not down for the count. He would gladly put him down, but this fight was not his, even if the man was pissing him off. It was a test for the cooks, to check their morals and their courage against a pirate. If they asked him to fight, he would gladly fight. But that won't be required anytime soon, since someone had decided to move fast and approach them. This is the worst restaurant I have ever been to, Krieg said, coming out of the smoke, which had encompassed the door, with golden armor on show. Bellies. Nami's eyes changed to the sign of bellies as soon as she saw the golden armor. He is scary, Usopp stated, looking with his wide, terrified eyes at the man. That bastard. Get him, Patty shouted, leading the cooks who had their weapons out to charge at the pirate captain. But Don Krieg was not having any of it anymore. He started shooting with his gun at the cooks, leading them to duck under tables, and some even got injured. You damn worms. You think you can defy me? Krieg yelled, firing ruthlessly at the cooks. Stop it, a voice rang through the restaurant, followed by a thud. Owner Zeph. The cooks uttered, seeing the man plop down a big sack of food before Krieg. "There's enough food for your people. So, hurry up and bring it to your men," Zeph said to the pirate captain. "Did they just say, Zeph?" Don Krieg asked with shock. "Sir, how could you give him food? What's the meaning of this?" The cooks started asking questions at the head chef. "Once they recover, they will take over this ship." "That's only if they still have any fight left in them," Zeph stated, turning to his cooks. "Isn't that right, defeated warriors of the Grand Line?" Zeph inquired, looking over his shoulder to the large man. "What?" Usopp asked with wide eyes. "He was defeated." "The strongest man in the East Blue. The pirate fleet admiral of 50 ships. Even he was utterly defeated by Grand Line?" the cooks asked in shock. "Your red-legged Zeph." Krieg started coming to the realization. He didn't waste a single time mocking the man, seeing his peg leg and determining how his pirate career ended and why he chose to be a cook in a lousy restaurant. He started his adventures and his reputation in the Grand Line. "Seeing your condition, I can say you can't fight anymore," Krieg said, not fearing about the ex-pirate anymore. "So what? I can cook with my hands," Zeph stated nonchalantly. "What are you even getting at?" "Red-legged Zeph. You are the person who had scoured the waters of the Grand Line and has returned without an injury," Krieg started, with his hands on his chin. "You must have clearly kept a logbook of your adventures. Hand that to me." "I ain't handing you a shit," Zeph said through his gritted teeth. "That log is a pride to me and my men who bravely ventured the Grand Line together. I ain't giving to you." "Then I'll have to steal it from you," Krieg stated, and went on to say how it was the lack of information that had defeated him in the Grand Line and how if he had the logbook he would conquer the seas. "I'll steal it and the ship and no one can stop me," Krieg roared. "Like hell, we'll let you. If we lose this ship we have nowhere to go." The cooks here were chased from other restaurants before finally finding a place. "Owner Zeph accepted us. He is our savior. We ain't letting you pirates steal our home away." The cooks roared together, but Krieg didn't listen to the shit they were sprouting. He picked up the bag of food and stated, "I'm giving you all only a few minutes of extension. I'm going to give this food to my subordinates and then return back here. So, flee if you want." He turned his back to the crowd and said the last words, "If you still want to be here, then so be it. I'll bury your bodies in the bottom of the sea for eternity." With that said, the man walked away from the cooks, whose shouts were still heard from outside. They will all shut up, once he crushed them under his feet, Krieg thought. "Sanji," Jin said as his head touched the restaurant's floor. "Please forgive me. I had no idea at all that this would happen. There's no need to apologize." Unexpectedly, it was Zeph who said that. "The cooks of this restaurant acted out of their own free will, and this is the result of that." "Sir, how could you of all people side with Sanji?" Patty asked with disbelief. Of all the people he could have thought to take Sanji's side wasn't owner Zeph at all. Just what's the meaning of this? "That's right," other cooks started saying. "Sanji's the one to blame for all this. He just wants to destroy this restaurant that's so important to you, sir." Other cooks started accusing Sanji, who was just standing beside Luffy. "Sanji, were you planning on using this mess we're in to become the next head chef?" The cooks were getting out of control and speaking nonsense, but Sanji stayed quiet. "Silence, you numbskulls," Zeph roared, stopping the accusations towards his foster son. "Have any one of you ever been hungry enough to die? Do any of you know just how terrifying and painful it is to be stuck in the ocean, deprived of food and water?" Sanji didn't speak a word, letting Zeph speak for him. He lit his cigarette and puffed out a ring of smoke, remembering the hungry days he spent with Zeph on the rock, starving. "What do you mean, sir?" Patty asked in shock. "If you've got time to be crying over spilled milk, then just leave this place using the back door," Zeph said, pointing to the door for the cooks. "I'm gonna stay here," Patty said, holding his weapon. "I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I just left without a fight." "Same here. This is the place I live and work at. Not like I've got anywhere else to go to." The cooks voiced their opinions of not wanting to leave the restaurant. It was their home to protect. What are you all doing?" Jin yelled, sitting up on the floor. "Haven't you realized how powerful the Don is by now? You need to run away before he annihilates each one of you." "Hey, Jin," Sanji said, speaking for the first time, looking down at the man. "Let me tell you something. It's my duty as a cook to feed anyone who's starving. But the ones who are coming to attack this ship are those who've already been fed. So you better not complain when I kill them. If someone is planning on stealing this ship, then I'll kill that person without a second thought, even if it's you, Sanji said, his face shadowed by his bangs. Got that? HMPH, you save a person only to kill him afterwards, some guy you are, Paddy said with his large fork on his shoulders. Shut up, shitty cook, Sanji retorted looking away from the man. Luffy, we need to get out of here, Nami said banging her hands on the table. Why? Luffy asked innocently. If we don't get out of here soon, Usopp said with fear leaking from his voice. Calm down, Zoro said to Usopp and Nami who were on the verge of panic. Our enemies are wounded pirates. That's right, and besides I have to fight with that guy, Luffy said remembering the pirate's words and actions. If he says he is strong, then he and I are going to fight eventually. Luffy left it unsaid that the guy was pretty weak compared to him. The only reason he wanted to fight the man was cause he treated his crewmate, Jin, like nothing. Moreover, he had tried to punch Sanji. He wasn't going to let that slide. He likes this restaurant so he won't let it be wrecked by a fake pirate. Jin, didn't you say you have never been to the Grand Line? Sanji asked the man, making Luffy and the other Straw Hats turn towards the man. What I don't know is the truth. I can't just believe it. I just don't know if those 7 days we spent there were real or just a nightmare. Jin said with his hands tugging on his hair. He just appeared out of nowhere. To think all 50 ships of the Krieg pirate fleet were destroyed by a single man. What? Usopp and Nami said with wide eyes. Zoro even dropped his jaw at the said words. That's impossible, the cooks in Baratie yelled. Luffy only nodded. The Krieg pirates were not ready for the Grand Line, and that's what happened when they encountered that man. While we still had no idea of what was going on, our ships sank one by one, and if it weren't for that storm that whisked us away, even our main ship would have sunk. Jin said, looking utterly terrified of what he was reliving. I don't even know how many of our ships managed to survive. It's just too terrifying to believe is real. I don't even want to think about that hawk-eyed man whose glare is sharp enough to kill a man. I don't want to think about him, Jin said, getting Zoro's complete attention. What? Zoro said in disbelief. The man he has been searching for all the while is out there in the Grand Line. How could our entire fleet be sunk by a single man? Jin questioned, not getting it at all. That has to work off the hawk-eyed man without a doubt, Zeph said without missing a beat. Hawk-eyed? Some of the cooks repeated the word. You saying that you witnessed a man whose glare was as sharp as that of a hawk doesn't necessarily prove it was him, but the fact that he sunk your entire fleet is more than enough proof that it really was him, Zeph asked, crossing his arms on his chest. Hawk-eyed? Usopp repeated. Who's that? Dracule Mahawk, Luffy supplied, sitting on the table swinging his leg. He is one of the warlords of the seas and one of the best swordsmen in the world. And the man I'm searching for, Zoro said seriously, forgetting that Luffy said something more too. But I thought he is the best swordsman in the world? Nami questioned, making Zoro look at Luffy. His captain was from Grand Line. He sure ought to know more than he does. Nah. Luffy said, shaking his head and becoming the center of attention from the cooks in Baratie and his crew, as well as Jin, who was looking at Luffy with horrified eyes. Haki sure does have that title, but the truth is that Shanks and Haki have the same level. They both are the best. Luffy said, remembering the statement that Ace and Sabo had told him. Dad and Sabo told me that it's only due to government propaganda that Haki carries that title. Propaganda, Zeph supplied, erasing everyone, and Luffy nodded. That's what I said, Luffy said before continuing. Every pirate in the New World, sorry, Grand Line, knows that. Zeph's eyes widened as he realized that the kid could be from none other than the New World if he knew that. You are from the Grand Line, Zeph said, making Luffy not say anything. He just kept looking at the distance from where the man was coming. Did he bear some ill grudge against you guys? Sanji asked, clearly saving Luffy only because Luffy had saved him. For him to destroy your entire fleet like that. I don't remember anything like that, Jin retorted. He just attacked us all of a sudden. Perhaps you disturbed his afternoon nap? Zeph asked, having faced Mihawk a few times in his journey. Or he just wanted to kill some time, Luffy mumbled, getting off from the table. That's bullshit, Jin shrieked. You mean to tell me he destroyed our entire fleet for that? No need to get so irritated. That's just the kind of place the Grand Line is, Zeph said, fondling his braid. A place where even the abnormal is normal, huh? Zoro questioned. Yep. Luffy said, vibrating with energy. That place is such a thrill, we need to go there soon. Shut up, Luffy, Nami said irritatedly. She couldn't comprehend anything. She knew Luffy was hiding something, but the fact that he possibly could be from the Grand Line. Could you at least try to think of the danger? Usopp asked seriously. But we need to go to the Grand Line since those men are there, Zoro declared with a smirk. He was out for defeating one person earlier, so what if one more person is waiting for him to defeat? Bunch of idiots you lot are, to rush to their deaths, Sanji said, looking at the table, where the idiots with high ambitions sat. True, ever since I've decided to become the world's greatest swordsman, I threw away my attachment to life, Zoro replied. The only one who has to call me an idiot is me alone. That for sure stoke a chord in some people. Oh, me too, Luffy said, raising his hands. It was either he becomes the freest man or rather die without freedom. As a real man, the same goes for me too, Usopp said, clearly lying, which got pointed out by Zoro too. Nami silently stood up from her chair. She had realized one thing, and that was the cruel reality. She didn't belong to the group of dreamers who have not given up on their dreams like she had long ago. Zoro bro. Usopp bro. Luffy bro. Nami bro. In came a familiar voice yelling out the names of the said pirates. Why am I bro? Nami grumbled with her shark teeth at Johnny, who stumbled over Yosaku, leading to a stack of papers falling down. What the heck is happening here? Yosaku asked from where he fell. There is Krieg's ship docked here. We already know, Yosaku, Zoro answered nonchalantly. What's wrong, Nami? Luffy asked as he noticed Nami crunching a bounty poster in her hands with her bangs shadowing her eyes. Nothing, Nami replied, getting up from the ground and stuffing the paper in her skirt pocket. She just hadn't realized how fast the time had passed as she spent her each day with the pirates. It was time. Time to get back to her village and finally free it. She has enough money for it. You're hiding something, Luffy stated, making Nami go still. It always amazes her how Luffy easily sees through her lies. It scares her as she doesn't want her mask to be shattered in front of everyone. I told you it's nothing, Nami said through her gritted teeth and started walking out. She needed to leave, right now. She can't fall in between the tussle they have gotten themselves in. It was none of her business. Whether Luffy D dies or not, it doesn't matter to her. She lied to herself. You are thinking of leaving us, Luffy stated, making Nami freeze while the others turned towards her instantly. Even if I leave, it's none of your business, she said in a low voice to Luffy, wincing at the plain hurt that flashed in the boy's eyes momentarily before he hid it. Just leave me alone, she said, and started running off, wiping the stray tears with her palm, which leaked as soon as she turned. She wasn't able to run much far when a hand on her wrist stopped her. She momentarily turned back to see Luffy holding her wrist and Zoro standing beside him. Usopp just standing behind him with Sanji looking unsure of what to do. Even Johnny and Yosaku were there, looking at her expectantly. You are our navigator, you can't leave us, Luffy stated. I can't be the Pirate King without you, Nami. I never officially joined you, Nami tried to defend herself, even if she felt her heart crack at Luffy's words. It was only a temporary alliance, she said, not daring to see the raw hurt that Luffy's face was showing. Luffy wasn't meant to be hurt. He was meant to be coddled, protected, to smile. Luffy, let me go. She gulped down the sob that threatened to wreck from her throat as she said the line, wanting nothing but to stay, but at the same time, she didn't belong here. She didn't belong to the Cherry Group, which had made a place in her heart. I can help, Luffy said in a soft voice. I can free your village, Nami. Nami wiped her tears from her other hand and turned slightly to look over her shoulder and saw Zoro nod at what Luffy said. She should have been feeling happy at those words, but she felt guilty. If she asks for help, then she would be endangering Luffy's life, Zoro's life, Usopp's life, everyone's life. Moreover, Luffy is just a kid. He doesn't need to fall in mid of her matters. No matter how strong he is, he can't fight and defeat Arlong. He is a damn fishman. No, she yelled, not wanting to involve Luffy at all, jerking Luffy's hand from her wrist. She knew that Luffy had let her do that, but she couldn't help but move forward, leaving the merry friends wasn't that a such good word, behind. I will come for you no matter what. Luffy's words made her falter again. I won't enter the Grand Line without you. You're my friend Nami, and if you truly see me as a younger brother. Nami's face turned red, realizing that her well-hidden feelings were well known by Luffy all along. Then as a brother, it's my responsibility to protect my sister, Luffy declared, but unknowingly he had steeled Nami's determination to leave once more. Yes, Luffy is like a little brother to her. So, as a big sister, she can't let her brother's life be in danger. Not even her friends. Don't come for me, she said as she started walking again. Wait a little longer and we'll kick that bastard's ass for you. Luffy shouted, pleading for one last time. But Nami gently shook her head and moved on. She cannot stay anymore. Not when Arlong can come searching for her when she is gone for so long time. Time sure does fly fast. She stopped out of fear at the docks as the huge galleon of Krieg broke into 3 parts, freezing her in her path. What? Everyone yelled in panic at the sight of the ship. What the heck happened? Krieg yelled, sweating bullets. Our ship's been cut. One of the pirates yelled. Crap, Usopp yelled. Our ship was outside too. Nah, it's safe, Luffy said, knowing that the ship was out of the harm's reach. He had already made a gust of wind which had led the Mary to the other side of the Barati for its safety, but it had tired him badly. Tapping at those powers sure was hella hard. Raise the anchor or this ship's gonna get dragged under. Zeph's voice rang out next, making the cooks scramble to follow his orders. There was so much panic in the atmosphere that it was making Luffy lose his balance. Above all this, the fact that he had used the powers that he shouldn't have used until he used that form is tiring. He is here, Luffy said next, feeling light-headed. Everyone including Nami turned towards him. Who is here? Zoro asked, looking at the direction Luffy was seeing only to find a man seated in a one-man boat. That man is Don Krieg. It's him. He has come to kill all of us. The Krieg pirates started panicking and running like headless chickens on the remaining deck of the ship. Some even tried to get as far as possible by swimming to avoid the said man. It can't be. Is that hawk-eyed man? Zoro asked in shock. But he knew deep within that he is. Damn it. One of the Krieg pirates cursed at the sight of the man. What did we do to you? Why the hell do you have to follow us out here? Just to kill some time, Mihawk said, looking bored. That's bullshit. The Krieg pirates roared, firing the said man with their guns, only for their bullets to be deflected or sliced by the said swordsman. What? I missed? A Krieg pirate asked in shock. He deflected it. It'll be the same no matter how many times you shoot. Zoro answered the pirates and took a step forward, ignoring the gasps of everyone. He changes the bullet's trajectory with the tip of his sword. I've never seen such graceful movements, Zoro stated, walking towards the swordsman, ignoring the other pirates who were cursing him. A sword without grace is no strong sword, Mihawk replied, sheathing his sword back at its rightful place and eyeing Zoro curiously. Did you cut this ship with that sword? Zoro asked, standing before Mihawk on the broken deck of the Krieg's ship. Yes, indeed, Mihawk replied nonchalantly. No wonder, Zoro said, looking at the man with a nervous smirk. You really are one of the strongest. That got a reaction from Mihawk, who raised his eyebrow at the said statement. There were few who knew about the said thing, especially he didn't think that someone from the weakest sea would know that. I set sail to meet you, Zoro continued, making his resolve. He felt wide eyes looking at him, most pirates recognizing him. He could feel his friend's eyes on his back. What do you aim for? Mihawk asked, sitting cross-legged in his boat. To be the strongest, Zoro stated, tying his bandana. So let's have a duel. Luffy, Nami said instantly, you gotta stop him. Luffy didn't reply. He only stared at Mihawk intensely. It's him. Zoro. Roronoa Zoro of the Three Sword Style. Some of the Krieg pirates yelled in the background, recognizing Zoro. The pirate hunter? Don Krieg asked, looking at the green-haired man with interest. If he survives, he may bring that fool in his crew, Krieg thought. Pitiful, weakling, Mihawk said the words, standing up from his little boat and walking to the broken wreck of the ship which was still floating and where Zoro stood. If you're a competent swordsman by any means, then I can demonstrate the clear difference in strength between you and me, without needing to cross blades at all. But still you dare to challenge me? Does the bravery come from your conviction? Mihawk asked Zoro with his hands crossed on his chest. Or from ignorance? It comes from my ambition and a promise to a friend, Zoro said, holding his white sword in his mouth and the other two in each of his hands. To be honest, I never thought I'd be able to meet you so early on. A waste, if you ask me, Mihawk replied nonchalantly. The world's one of the strongest swordsmen versus the pirate hunter Zoro, Zeph announced, standing on the railing of his ship and looking at the two men and then to one of the man's captain and crewmates. The orange-haired girl was clearly looking with scared eyes at the two men while the others looked as if they thought that the pirate hunter would win. But Zeph knew that the young captain knew that his swordsman wouldn't. The way he was glaring at Mihawk was enough to prove it, if not the way the railing of his deck was forming cracks under the teen's hands. Luffy need not be told that Zoro wasn't prepared for this fight. At least not right now. The difference between him and Hawkeye was a lot, if not less. He watched as Mihawk pulled out his necklace from his neck and took out the little knife from it. He wanted to fight the man himself, but he knew this was the fight that Zoro had to fight if he wants to achieve his dream. He can't stand in the way of someone's dream ever, even if. Just what are you planning to do with that? Zoro asked, looking at the little knife which Hawkeye was holding. I don't kill a rabbit with a cannon, Mihawk answered simply, as if he was not insulting and agitating Zoro. Unfortunately, I do not have a blade smaller than this at the moment. There's a limit, Zoro said through his swords in anger. To just how much you can underestimate me. You better not regret it when you die. Zoro yelled the last part and rushed towards Mihawk, who wasn't moving at all. Hear me, little frog in this small well, Mihawk said, not even preparing himself for the swordsman who was dashing towards him. It's time for you to realize that the world is bigger than what it seems from your well. Onigiri! Zoro roared, attacking Mihawk, but got stopped by the tiny little blade. Zoro? Usopp said in shock. Brothers Onigiri was stopped, Johnny yelled in shock. His signature attack that sends his opponents flying 100% was stopped? Yosaku added to Johnny's shout. I told you so, Nami yelled once more, looking at Luffy. Zoro was one of her friends. She wouldn't want him to die. He won't be able to win this fight, call him back. Luffy, you're the captain. I can't, Luffy said through his gritted teeth. He has been seeing the whole fight using his observation haki. He knew how the match will end, he knew it damn well. And yet, he refused to move a single step to rescue Zoro. Mihawk is not someone he can underestimate so easily, that's what he knows. Zoro wasn't able to move a single step. There had been no men who had been able to see through this move, and yet he had been stopped by a stupid toy. Zoro moved his swords in blind rage, not wanting to accept that he was so far behind one of the best. Each time, his sword ended up getting stopped by Mihawk, until he fell on his back. He stood up, not wanting to give up at all. Arg! He let out a battle cry as he dashed forward to the man, who was only getting more bored. Come on, bro. Show him what you've really got, Johnny cheered for Zoro, along with Usopp and Yosaku. All the while Nami kept on seeing the death match with horrified eyes and trembling lips. The moments she spent with Zoro were flashing in her mind, making her think if this is how she would end up losing her friends, which she made after several years. I trained to win, Zoro's mind was reminiscing the words from Kuina. Her want to be the greatest too. But her words of how women can't. I came to beat you. His words to Koshiro-sensei when Kuina died. The want to become stronger for her and his sake. His oath to become the world's strongest swordsman whose name would be famous enough to reach even the heavens. What burdens do you carry? What do you still desire at the extent of your strength, weakling? Mihawk asked nonchalantly. How dare you call our bro a weakling? Yosaku yelled, followed by Johnny, who yelled at the same time, we ought to teach you a lesson, you bastard. Luffy held them and threw them on the deck of the Baratie back before they could interfere in Zoro's fight. Stay put. He held them down with both of his hands, in the process holding himself from not trashing out and going after Mihawk. Luffy. Nami said almost in a whisper as she felt the swirls of emotions flaring within the teen. She could see how he was restraining himself from interfering in the fight. Zoro was tossed to the ground once again by Mihawk, but he was not the one to stay put. He stood up and positioned his sword again. Tora. Luffy's words were ringing in his ears of how embarrassing it would be if wouldn't be able to become the greatest swordsman in the Pirate King's crew. All because he had faith that Luffy would be the king one day. Gari, he was stopped once again, but this time he wasn't thrown. He wasn't stopped by the swords clanging to each other. He was stopped by the little blade pie above his heart. A little more and he will be dead. But death didn't scare him much than the thought of losing what he practically lives for. Bro! Zoro! Cackle! A thunder cackled loudly in the sky, which was darkening at an alarming rate in the once tranquil blue sky, painting it as if it were night. As if it was protesting the death match that was going on. It looked as if the heavens itself didn't want the match, but at the same time it didn't want to interrupt it, as none of the lightnings decided to fall too close to the broken wreck. But all of this was merely ignored by the two swordsmen. Zoro didn't step back, even if his own blood was soaking his own t-shirt. Even if blood was trickling down from his mouth. "Do you wish for me to pierce your heart?" Mihawk asked, as Zoro didn't take a single step back, with a raised eyebrow. "Why do you refuse to step back?" "Not really sure myself," Zoro replied honestly, leading to more blood trickle down his mouth. "But I get the feeling that if I were to take even one step back right now, I'd lose something important to me. A promise or oath. Or whatever, it would be irreversibly broken, and that I'd never be able to return back to where I'm standing right now." "Yes," Mihawk agreed. "Such is defeat. Ha ha ha. Then that's why I can't step back," Zoro stated with a little laugh. "Even if it means your death?" Mihawk asked, looking at Zoro's eyes and searching for any fear. Searching for any lies behind the words he had uttered. "I'd rather die," Zoro said without missing a beat. Mihawk was intrigued now. The conviction which the boy possessed before him to rather choose death than defeat was something rare. Even New World pirates feared death, except one reckless idiot who he has met. "Kid," Mihawk said, taking out the knife from the boy's chest. "Tell me your name." "Rorinoa Zoro," Zoro said, positioning his sword for the final strike. "I shall remember it," Mihawk stated, reaching for his black blade. "Yuru. For your strength is not often seen in this world." The thunder roared above them, and the sky was changing to an unusual color which made Mihawk glance at the sky once, but his attention snapped when someone's haki flared. And it was not some ordinary haki. It was a controlled burst of Conqueror's haki aimed at him. He looked to the side to look at a kid with a straw hat, recognizing him in an instant. The kid was commanding him to not kill the boy before him. The straw hat made him pinpoint who exactly the boy was. The boy, the 17-year-old teen, who really looked like a kid, was none other than the boy Shanks always tells him about. The boy was none other than Monkey D. Luffy, a New World veteran. He saw the boy struggling to jump into the match and trying to keep himself from interfering. He can tell that the haki which he felt was due to the anger and concern for his friend, and not because the boy wanted to weaken him before the last strike, if he could, that is. Shanks did tell him that this Monkey D. Luffy was powerful, but the fact he looks so young, and his brilliant control over Conqueror's haki was left unsaid. And that was not where the list ended. The boy clearly had a mysterious aura. The aura of someone too powerful, and not to be messed with. In his eyes, Monkey D. Luffy was clearly an enigma. Luffy watched as Mihawk's gaze fell on him momentarily. He glared at the said man, not wanting him to kill his friend. He respects Zoro's decision, but he can't help the anger which was bubbling up. He couldn't stop the thunders from not clashing with each other and making a violent sound, which was making many Krieg pirates flinch. He watched as Mihawk took out his black blade, removing his gaze from him, clearly stating that he won't listen to him and do whatever the hell he wants. "To pay my respect to you as a fellow swordsman, I shall end this duel with my black sword," Mihawk said, making many pirates gawk at the beautiful sword. "Die," Mihawk said, running forward to Zoro, who started twisting his blades before him. "Bro, that's enough. Stop," Johnny and Yosaku yelled, getting the situation after all. "Zoro, stop it, you'll die," Nami screamed, her tears leaking through her eyes as she watched death getting closer and closer to Zoro. "Three Swords Style Secret. 3,000 Worlds," Zoro yelled as he and Mihawk crossed each other's paths. Not even a second later, Zoro's swords broke, except Kuina's blade, making Zoro finally conclude that he was no match for Hawkeye. At least not now. He sheathed his white sword and turned towards Mihawk, who looked confused. "Scars on a back are a swordsman's shame," Zoro said with a smirk, blood dripping from his mouth to the deck. The lightning cackled loudly in the sky, illuminating Zoro's bloody figure standing with his arms spread, inviting the other swordsman to end him. "Splendid," Mihawk said, and without missing a beat slashed Zoro. "Zoro!" Luffy shouted with the thunder and the clouds which roared in the sky, making everyone's eardrums pain. The flashes of lightning danced in the inky blackness of the sky as if they were hurt, wounded or sad. Each strike was sending shockwaves to the people who were watching it with eyes filled with horror. Nami had already collapsed on her feet, with her shaky hands on her mouth to cover her sobs. She couldn't care about the again unexpected thunder which had marked its arrival. She couldn't muster her hands to leave her mouth to go and cover her eardrums. What the heck was she thinking when she thought of leaving the reckless fools, these reckless dreamy idiots, who had warmed their place in her heart? But if she stays, she will bring them only trouble. But she can't leave them right now. What friend would she be if she leaves the crew right now? "Bro!" Yosaku and Johnny yelled, diving into the water to fish out Zoro, who was already falling. "Zoro!" Usopp whispered, finally deciding to move and bring up a little boat to the men. "Why?" Sanji muttered under his breath, not understanding a thing. Why did ambition stood before death? Why one must not throw away their ambitions if it meant they would live? Why? Sanji couldn't understand it at all. "Damn it!" Luffy roared, rocketing himself to Mihawk and where Zoro had fallen to. "What's that?" The pirates shrieked in terror as they saw Luffy's arms stretch. But that was the least they were scared of now. Mihawk was here, and above it was the ear-numbing thunder which looked as if it had emanated from hell itself. The air was filled with tension. Tension for what would happen next for the Krieg pirates, and the fear of the storm which was beginning to remind them of the Grand Line. Tension about what would happen to Zoro, whose body was falling deeper and deeper into the dark abyss of the ocean, which seemed as if she wanted to claim him as her own. A chilling anger was in the atmosphere as Luffy landed just a few feet away from Mihawk. Anger would be a less word. He was pissed. Pissed to even check on Zoro's flickering haki, which was worrying. He was so pissed that he couldn't even hear Nami shouting to not go before the man. He was pissed to not notice the flares of Conqueror's haki surrounding him and providing some fearful pirates the abyss of escape from the horrifying sights. If Mihawk was not intrigued enough by Shanks's story on the little menace of Monkey D. Luffy, then the situation right now sure piqued his curiosity. The kid did show a childish anger on his face, but deep down it was sending shivers in his spine. He wasn't sure if it was the work of his Conqueror's haki or not, but he knew that the kid was blinded by rage right now. He wouldn't listen until his friend was all right. And what was up with the thunders? They cackled at each step of the boys as if they were just a part of him, which showed their anger with him. Mihawk couldn't understand. He had been in the New World, in the Grand Line, and yet had seen nothing like the boy. And was he sweating? But why? The air was chill, and yet he could feel the scorching heat of the sun just on him. He acted nonchalant. From out of him wanted to unveil the mystery of the boy which stood before him, and a part of him felt that the boy could see through his facade. "You won't be able to remove your sight from him," Shanks had said once, laughing as if he was stating a fact, not a perception. This was the time Mihawk did agree with the drunken ass of the other man. His thoughts were halted, as the boy lifted his head, his eyes similar to the eyes of a predator, his blank face which was lit with the lightning that danced on the sky, looked as if it was straight from hell. This was the time that Mihawk felt that he had made a mistake, as he clearly saw the boy's irises change to reddish ones, which looked as if they were out for blood, for his blood. The boy sure has a devil fruit, but what? The boy can stretch. He can change his irises. What kind of devil fruit works like this? Even Shanks always avoided breaching on this topic, and as a government-sanctioned pirate, he could tell that it was for the safety of the boy. The flickering eyes told him how he was trying to control himself, and Mihawk found the opportunity to calm the boy. "Fear not. The man's still alive," he stated, wanting to remove his gaze from the raven-haired boy and look at the green-haired who was being pulled from the depths of the ocean by his friends. "I know," the boy stated, his eyes piercing his eyes as if looking for something. After a few seconds, the boy removed his eyes from him to look at his comrade, as if he had found the thing which he had been looking in his eyes. "Bro, answer us. Bro," Yosaku's desperate voice reached Luffy as he looked at the duo bringing Zoro to their little boat. "Zoro," Luffy whispered, wanting nothing more than to check up on his friend. The man was coughing blood, but Luffy knew that Zoro would live. It pains him to agree with his mother that this event couldn't have been ignored and that this was important for Zoro to strengthen his want to be the greatest swordsman of the world. "I'm Dracul Mahawk," Hawkeye announced, looking at the boat where some people were giving first aid to the wounded man. "It is too much early for you to die. Know yourself. Know your world," Mahawk continued, knowing that man was hearing him even if he was just clinging to consciousness by a mere thread. "And become strong, Roranoa," Mahawk's voice bellowed. "No matter how many months or years pass by, I shall stand here at the top of the world and wait for you. So forge on ahead with that fierce conviction and try to surpass my sword." "Surpass me, Roranoa," Mahawk shouted, wanting the boy to hear it clearly. "To think that Mahawk would say such a thing," Zeph said with his arms crossed on his chest, and with a clear respect for the green-haired boy. He whispered something to a cook, who nodded and rushed inside the restaurant. "Boy, what do you aim for?" Mahawk asked, looking at Luffy, who looked back at him. "The Pirate King, the freest man in the world. A tough path, indeed. Even tougher than surpassing myself," Mahawk said with a smirk. But he felt that if someone could do it, then this boy would definitely. "Whatever," Luffy said, blowing a raspberry at the man. "I'm going to do it anyway." With that said, Luffy turned his attention to his comrades. "Usopp, Nami, is Zoro alright?" "Like hell, he'll be," Usopp said, applying pressure to Zoro's wound to stop the blood flow. Zoro was getting paler and paler by each passing minute. "He has lost a lot of blood," Nami added, trying to help Zoro, while Johnny and Yosaku kept on crying. "We need to get him to a doc." Shocking them all, Zoro's white blade rose into the air. Luffy," Zoro began. Nami, who had been talking, stopped. No one dared to interrupt the swordsman as he continued, with one hand lifting his sword and the other covering his eyes, which were flowing with tears. "Circa, can you hear me?" "Yeah," Luffy said, paying extra attention to his first mate. "Sorry for worrying you," Zoro continued, his voice wavering a little. "I know that if I don't become the world's strongest swordsman, it will only embarrass you." Zoro spat out blood, making Yosaku and Johnny panic. Usopp and Nami didn't dare to interrupt Zoro as they knew what was happening. "I swear that I'm never going to lose again," Zoro yelled through his blood, snot and tears. "Until the day I fight him and win." Mahawk smirked and Luffy's face had a wide D grin on his face, knowing Zoro would grow stronger and stronger. "I swear to never lose again," Zoro shouted, despite it was aggravating his wounds further. "Any problems, Pirate King?" She. "Nope," Luffy laughed brightly, making Zoro feel at ease and drop his sword. "You make a good team," Mahawk said, walking away. "I'd like to see you two again, sometime in the future." "Sure, Haki," Luffy said, giving the man his sunny grin, and making Mahawk smirk, not caring about the nickname. "Tell Shanks hi for me," Luffy said, looking at the man who turned his neck slightly to look at him over his shoulder. But why did Haki look blurry? Luffy blinked his eyes, trying to look at the man until he could see the man's slight twitching of lips. Hawkeye had to literally control the slight upward twitch that his lips wanted him to make. But he could really see the picture which Shanks had painted in his mind, coming alive. But still, he won't say that the kid's smile made him want to protect him. But maybe he will look out for the teen as well as his new interest. "Hey, Brat, bring that boy here," Zeph shouted from where he stood. "Sure, old man," Luffy replied back and jumped to the little dinghy where his friends were. He was feeling hungry, but that can be done after Zoro gets treatment. "You'll be all better, Zoro," Luffy said, cheering up the little crew and their friends which he had gathered. No one said anything as Johnny and Yosaku rowed the little boat to the Baratie to get Zoro treatment. They knew one thing, that if anyone can help, then it is Zeph and the cooks in the Baratie. They have to keep medicines, or at least a first aid kit to treat Zoro until they get to an actual doctor. "Hawkeyes," Don Krieg's voice came, as he plopped on the broken wreck of his ship. "Did you come for the head of the infamous ruler of East Blue, Don Krieg?" "For a while, yes," Mahawk stated honestly, his eyes flickering from the pirate and then settling on the little group that was pulling Roranoa to the fish restaurant. "But I've already enjoyed myself here, so I'll return to my nap." "No need to be so hasty," Don Krieg said, not giving a fuck about the warlord, who had destroyed his ship with a single swing of his blade. "You may have your fun, but I haven't." Don," Why is he purposely trying to prevent that man from leaving? The Krieg pirates stated with tears in their eyes. They didn't want to face the man at all, and here Don was agitating the man. How about you die before leaving? Don Krieg roared as he pointed his gun, each on his hand and shoulder, to the swordsman and started shooting. You never learn, do you? Mihawk asked, taking about his sword and swirling it gracefully, making the water carry him and his boat away from the ruffians. Farewell. Luffy plopped himself beside Zeph, carrying a wounded Zoro in his arms. The sight was sure a bit comical of a kid like Luffy holding Zoro. Lay him there, Zeph said as he guided Luffy to one of the tables in the Baratie. Luffy listened to him, knowing that he would be able to save Zoro. Nami, Usopp, Johnny and Yosaku followed the duo with Sanji, who was looking conflicted in his own thoughts regarding Zoro's ambitions and his recklessness. Moreover, what was up with the kid, who without a thought jumped before one of the best to avenge his crew? Give the old man a hand, will ya? Zeph asked, looking at Usopp, who nodded quickly. Zeph didn't ask Luffy to do it because he had a feeling the boy would mess up, even if he didn't want to. And Sanji? He was gathering his thoughts, so Zeph let him do that. Alcohol, Zeph said as he tore Zoro's shirt with a knife. Curry Kitchen to bring one. He'll be okay, right? Nami asked in a low voice, taking the bloody clothes that Zeph was tearing carefully from Zoro's chest. I won't lie. The lad lost a lot of blood, Zeph said, taking the bottle of alcohol from the hands of the long-nosed teen. Needle, Sanji? Zeph asked, making Sanji move fast. He started sterilizing the wound. He was not sure why he was doing this, but he knew that he shouldn't let the green-haired teen die. After all, he was recognized by Mihawk. Moreover, the pirates outside would be tackled soon, and he had time till they planned their next move, which was barely 5 minutes. Here, Sanji passed him the needle. Cut a fish, Zeph stated, making Sanji follow it without a question. Why fish? Usopp asked curiously, looking at Zeph's hands as they pierced Zoro's chest, in the process closing and stitching the wound. Fish skin is good for stomach wounds, an old seaman technique, Zeph said, not looking at the others. He could feel the eyes of the mysterious kid on him, watching his each step carefully. He ignored it and started layering the fish skin on the green-haired man's chest. Mihawk sure has spared the life of the boy by an inch. Bandages, Zeph announced, making Johnny and Yosaku, who had disappeared when Usopp went to get alcohol, come back with bandages. Luffy watched everything as Zeph bandaged Zoro. He could feel Zoro's aura stabilizing from before, meaning that he indeed was out of the danger zone. He felt a smile grow up on his face as he saw Zoro breathing softly, as if he was never hurt. When will he be up? Luffy asked, not averting his eyes from Zoro. The world seemed to spin around him, yet Luffy held his ground. I don't know, but let's hope it's soon, Zeph replied honestly. It's Zoro we are taking about, Usopp said in a low voice. That dumbass is gonna be fine, Nami said half-heartedly. She didn't want Luffy to look sad, and Zoro wouldn't like it either. Nami saw Luffy give her a small smile, but the thing which was worrying Nami was that Luffy was paling. The slight concern in the eyes of Usopp showed that he had seen it too. We need to get him some sake and he'll be up as new, Luffy said, making Zeph instantly reply, that is not how these work. We won't know until we TR. Luffy stumbled and fell forward directly on Usopp, who was standing ahead of him. Luffy! Nami and Usopp yelled at once, seeing Luffy's condition. You okay, brat? Zeph asked with a raised eyebrow. The brat was not looking any well. I'm fine, old man, Luffy said, snapping himself out of the dizziness he was feeling. He shouldn't have used the lightnings. But for fuck's sake, he can't control it any well yet. He gritted his teeth and stood on his legs. Owner Zeph. A cook came rushing in. They're starting. So, they are finally ready, Sanji said, pushing his hands in his pockets. Stay here and rest, Sanji said, particularly to Luffy, who looked ready to fight. No way. Luffy said, cracking his muscles. I'm all in for it. But Luffy, Nami and Usopp got cut off when Luffy interrupted them. Nami, Usopp, Luffy said, walking towards Sanji. Take care of Zoro for me. He gave them a small smile, leaving no arguments from both of them. He knew Nami wouldn't be leaving anytime soon. But he needs to finish this fight even if it's not his. Zoro needs rest, which he can either get here or on his ship when it sets sail, which will only happen when Sanji joins them. and Mary needs to be protected. He can't let the pirates have their home. Luffy turned towards the old man and said, "Hey old man, if I chase them away, can I have Sanji as my cook?" "I am not a bargaining chip, you damn brat," Sanji yelled at the kid, who just gave him a sheepish smile. He didn't look pale or weak at all as he had felt just a moment ago. "Do whatever you want," Zeph grumbled, but Luffy could tell that the man was happy with that. On the other side, Don Krieg had finished luring his crew to attack the Baratie and claim it as their own. Even if some of his crew tried to state that the Grand Line could be filled with monsters like Hawk-Eyed Guy, he kept denying it. Lastly stated that Mihawk clearly had a devil fruit like the straw hat wearing kid, who was coming out of the Baratie and bickering with Zeph and a blonde. He was sure that Zeph's logbooks contained a way to fight against those freaks in the Grand Line and even some information about the One Piece, which was enough to energize his crew and follow his command without a question. "Charge forward, men!" Don Krieg roared, stopping the bickering between the three: Sanji, Zeph, and Luffy, and making them pay attention to him. "Let's take over that restaurant." "They're all fired up to fight," Luffy stated with a wide grin and cracked his knuckles. "Where's Patty and Carne?" Sanji asked, ignoring the sadness that he was feeling deep within his heart. He just can't believe he was used as a bargaining material. But he owes his life to Zeph. "They're busy with battle preparations," a cook stated with a feral grin. "Those guys sure are reliable in times like these." "Only in times like this," Sanji repeated. "You better go to the control room and open up the fins." "What?" the cook asked with wide eyes. "That'll give our enemies a better foothold." "The geezer won't shut up if we destroy his restaurant," Sanji said, poking his tongue out at the man. "You said something, brat?" Zeph asked, looking at Sanji's antics. "Yeah, I said you won't stop sprouting nonsense," Sanji retorted, angry about the conversation they had earlier. He doesn't want to leave him, the one whom he still needs to pay his debt. "Hand that ship to us, you pathetic cooks," the pirates yelled, making their way to the Baratie. "Let's make this at least fun," Luffy said, holding the railing and running back to stretch his arms and give him enough space. "Gomu Gomu no rocket." He flung himself to the Krieg pirates, making them panic. But Luffy didn't give them enough time as his arms stretched again in a practiced motion, flinging the pirates back to the deck or the ocean with his next attack, Gomu Gomu no scythe. "That kid ain't bad," the cooks cheered, looking at the number of men who had just fallen straight to the ocean or just had blacked out. "That's the power of a Grand Line pirate?" Sanji asked in shock. He hadn't believed the kid much when he had stated that he was from Grand Line, but he couldn't ignore the fact anymore. On top of it, the kid clearly looked unwell. "I'll send ungrateful crooks like you flying," Luffy hissed, baring his teeth at Krieg while punching away a pirate who had raised his sword at him. Honestly, he looked like a kitten wanting to bite someone. Krieg laughed as he saw the teen fight his men, and how good his crew was acting on feinting on the kid. His crew, obviously, can't be weak enough to go down with a punch from the kid. So, he was quick to realize that his men were following in his footsteps to show the teen the power of the Krieg pirates. "What's a little brag gonna do against me in a place where you can fall anytime in the ocean?" Krieg asked with a smug grin on his face. Moreover, he can see the teen stumbling on his legs a few times. That sure was an advantage for him to grab. "I'm not a brat. I'm a pirate, and the ocean is my." The brat gave him a smile that became too feral and disturbing for Krieg's liking. Home. For the first time in his life, Krieg felt that he should not fight with someone, moreover that someone was a mere kid, who looked pale. A simple brat with dreams far bigger than his very own size. The feeling that he got as the kid came near him told him to run, but Krieg, being the stubborn and arrogant one, denied it. He is not running from a mere kid. He won't ever run away. He is the strongest in the East Blue and soon will be the strongest in the whole world. The greatest pirate who will ever live. He can't be scared of a kid. So, he prepared himself to beat the kid into a bloody pulp. To make an example out of him of what happens when someone challenges the great Don Krieg, the pirate fleet admiral of. He couldn't even finish his thought before a punch came straight at him, shattering his trusty armor which he had thought would never break. He was in shock for a second, unable to comprehend or prepare for an attack as a sharp, stinging pain made him throw up his blood and collapse on his knees. It hurt. It hurts so much. Why does it hurt? His armor should have been able to survive the punch. It was just a measly punch by a child. a child who looked on the edge of fainting. It wasn't long before he was kissing the ground with a sharp howling pain coursing through his body. He could feel the pain, so terrible. He has never experienced anything like it before, and the fact that it was from a kid was more unbelievable. But no one had paid attention to the fight, which was lucky for Don Krieg. His reputation won't be crumbling to dust for a moment. All he needed to do was get up and show the kid that he was not going down with a punch. He has just underestimated him. But the blackness in his vision refused to let him stand. So, after a little struggle, he lost to the darkness which engulfed him whole. A few seconds earlier, just before Luffy was about to leap to Krieg. "Get the hell out of our way if you don't want to die," Patty's loud voice came, making the pirates ready for what was about to come. "Baraty's naval weapon, Sabagashira #1 is ready," Carne yelled the next. That caught the attention of all the pirates except for two who were bickering and preparing to fight. Patty and Carne were riding on a fish boat which had multiple cannons located in its mouth and had come out of the Baraty. The two cooks were having some difficulty paddling it and turning in different directions, but were able to control it soon enough and hence had the pirates who were swimming to run for their lives. The fish cannon boat was firing on the little wrecked parts of the remains of the Krieg's ship, destroying the foothold of the pirates. "Open the fins!" a cook shouted, catching the attention of almost every pirate except two who had pounced on each other. The water level in the ocean suddenly rose, making a gurgling sound and drowning the sound of the armor breaking into pieces, and soon a platform followed. The cooks didn't want to fight inside their home, less have it destroyed as collateral. The cooks of Baraty marched on the new platform holding their weapons and looking ready to fight, to protect their homes. Just what the hell can a couple of measly cooks do against us pirates? The Krieg pirates yelled, gaining their footing on the platform. "Don't you dare look down on us, cooks. Come on, show him the power of the fighting cooks," Patty yelled, encouraging the cooks, as he continued to paddle their little boat. "But where the hell is he?" Carne whispered, yelled, making the Krieg pirates turn their attention to the two cooks, who looked ready to crush them. "I bet he is hiding in his hide 'cause of us," Patty said proudly. "Hey, Krieg! You bastard, where the heck are you? You chickening out or what?" That made the fight in the Baraty, where the cooks were fighting against the Krieg pirate fodders, come to a halt. No one had noticed when Krieg had disappeared, but the cooks couldn't care less about it when they already had problems on their plate. The pirates were their main problem. "What's with Don?" a Krieg pirate asked another, looking nearby for their captain only to see him nowhere. "I have never seen him vanish mid-battle." "Shush." Another pirate shushed the other man who was blabbering. "Don Krieg is the strongest pirate. He sure is testing us. We should not disappoint him. Or rather, he is on his foul play again and wants to catch someone off guard." Another pirate pointed out, making the other two nod. "We should make sure that his plan works and not gather too much attention on him." "Patty, he is not anywhere. Carne Yell is good at hiding." "How dare you call our captain a coward?" Some of the Krieg pirates started getting agitated and a group of 5 pirates together stopped the little fishboat boat Patty and Carne were riding on. "Crap! They stopped it!" Patty yelled in shock and started pressing buttons which would lead to the firing of the cannons, but it didn't happen in time. "Don ain't got time to play with the likes of you," a pirate yelled as the strength of the 5 pirates sent them flying off to the Baraty. "All talk and no backbone," Sanji said with a sigh, taking out his cigarette from his mouth. "Useless bastards." "Crap, we're gonna crash into the restaurant," Carne yelled, holding onto his seat as if his life depended on it. Sanji jumped from his place and kicked the fish cannon boat flying straight away from the geezer's treasure, sending it straight to the platform. Luffy, who was leaning on a broken mast and looking at Krieg, feeling the pain of the man, turned away from him and looked at Sanji when he felt that something interesting would be happening. His instincts were correct when he saw Sanji jumping higher than a normal person could and kicking away the fish cannon boat, which made Luffy jump up in excitement at the cool ship, straight to the platform that had appeared out of nowhere for Luffy. Luffy whistled, clearly impressed at the display of strength his cook showed, while the cooks in Baraty were clearly in shock. "He kicked it?" some of the pirates asked in shock, but Patty and Carne were angry, at least by face. They accused Sanji of trying to kill his side, and the audacity of Sanji not even denying it made them angrier and sprout profanities which marked them as pirate cooks. Patty and Carne weren't even able to finish with Sanji, As thumping sounds came, they turned back to witness Krieg pirates having already finished their fights with their cooks. Powerful. A voice came taunting Patty and Carne, who were just telling Sanji of how powerful they are. Even if you hold weapons, a cook is still a cook. So why don't you scram back to other kitchens on land? Don't compare us to other pirates you've crossed before, another Krieg pirate stated. In front of them were the cooks lying on the ground, all wounded. We're pirates of Don Krieg, the ruler of the East Blue. Shit. These guys are strong, one of the cooks said, trying to get up. Are you gonna let them beat you that easily? Patty asked angrily. And you call yourselves fighting cooks? Carne joined the fray. So what if you're fighting cooks? We fight for a living, the pirates said, charging towards Patty and Carne, who beat them to the ground. Some of the pirates who were back started sweating and stepping back from the duo. But Patty and Carne were unfortunately not able to take on the show as a weird guy knocked them out on the deck. Haha. Behold. The man, known as Pearl, who was ridiculously armed with an iron shield, laughed. My invincible iron wall. Pearl. The pirates yelled in excitement. Ha 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 ha. You won't be standing after my lethal punch. Pearl said, holding the iron shields in his hands. You just got a good taste of my special Pearl present. Hey look. This guy's got a damn fine set of knives on him. Heh. This knife should cut better than mine. A Krieg pirate said, crouching down to Patty and trying to get the knife. But the man didn't let it go, even if it was making him bleed. Let go, the pirate yelled. He was about to speak more but was unable to when a kick landed square on his face, throwing him afar from the cook to his fellow members and then straight to Pearl's iron shield. Sanji took a swig from his cigarette and launched himself to the man who clearly wanted a fight. Then the next on his list was the weird Pearl guy. He better leave the Bharati or he would kill him. On the other side, Luffy found some pirates lingering in the Mary. Don't you dare step on our home, Luffy shouted as he flung himself to the Mary, taking out the pirates to the ocean. They were not worth his time. He wanted to see the fight between Sanji and the guy with Pearl on his forehead, who was panicking due to his face getting bloodied by Sanji. His cook sure was strong. Due to Luffy's anger, he wasn't able to witness the change in the situation. Jin holding Zeph as a hostage to stop Sanji. But as soon as he came out of the ocean, wet, he noticed it. It was cheating. He was angry that Jin was acting like this to stop Sanji. Luffy landed on the platform and walked through the fire as if it was nothing. Why do you lie, Jin? Luffy asked when Jin threatened to blow off Zeph. Wait, Sanji held him back, holding his arm. Let's see what he has to say. You want to save this man, don't you, Sanji? Jin asked, holding his pistol just on Zeph's head, and his other hand holding the broken peg leg of Zeph. Then leave the ship. Leave this ship? Sanji asked, chewing the end of his cigarette, as if. That caused the cooks of the Bharati to panic. They didn't want Zeph to die cause of Sanji provoking Jin. But the most shocking was when Sanji asked Jin to shoot him instead of Zeph. Are you stupid? Luffy asked, grabbing Sanji's collar, feeling that Sanji was not kidding about dying in place of Zeph. Don't you dare die, Luffy yelled. Whatever, Sanji said, not removing his eyes from where Zeph, his father figure, was held captive. In their argument they missed Pearl getting up and aiming straight for them. Luffy, look out, a shout came, making Luffy instantly duck, pulling Sanji with him, to avoid Pearl's attack. That sure would have let his secrets be spilled, now that his blood is turning more golden. But he doesn't have time to dwell on those thoughts. Thanks, Nami, Luffy shouted back. Don't ya dare move, if you want the geezer to live, Pearl shouted, banging his iron shield, wanting to smack Sanji, but Luffy wouldn't let it happen. Luffy raised his fist to knock the guy, only to be stopped by Sanji again. Don't lay a finger on him, kid, Sanji said, standing still with a scowl on his face, waiting for his head to be banged by Pearl. He didn't care as long as the geezer and his treasure was saved. But why? Luffy asked angrily. He respected his crewmate's decision, but this was stupid. As stupid as Nami hesitated to ask his help to free her village. "'Cause that damn geezer is held at gunpoint by him," Sanji said, gritting his teeth. That Pearl guy was just inches into banging him, and yet he was not scared. "Are you stupid?" Luffy asked, punching the Pearl guy away, making Sanji widen his eyes in horror and look at Jin, who looked as shocked as him. "Why? Do you want the geezer to die?" Sanji asked, grabbing Luffy's collar, his face scrunched in anger. You are damn stupid, Luffy said, jerking the hands of Sanji from his collar. Do you think Jin will be doing it in reality? Luffy asked, shocking Jin, who was unable to do anything. Do you think the old man wants you to die? Luffy shouted once more. You don't even know what the significance of kindness I received. What do you know about this restaurant? Sanji yelled back. So, you are gonna die for a restaurant? Are you dumb? What was that? Dying isn't something you should do to repay kindness. That's not the old man saved you for on that lonely cliff. That hit Sanji. He had never told anyone how bad their starvation period was on that lonely and hopeless cliff. Old man didn't save you that night in the storm for you to die. He didn't give up his leg for you to walk towards your death. How do you know? Sanji asked, his face shadowed by his bangs. There were gasps from the cooks as they realized that everything that was being said was the truth. Mom told me how stubborn you are. How you can't see the reality behind the old man's words. How you won't leave the old man to pursue his and your dream. Luffy shouted, not realizing what he was doing. I don't know who your mom is, but I do know that I can't leave the old man. He has done and given up on lots of things for me. His strength. His dreams. Sanji said, chewing his cigarette angrily. Angry at himself. That is why I don't want him to lose anything else. Damn, pipsqueak. Zeph gritted his teeth. He was embarrassed for a moment when he realized that his facade was see-through by the little brat and whoever his mom was. But he had known from the moment he had set his eyes on the brat, that he was special. Special like some in the grand line who were born with gifts from God itself. It's not time to ramble about the past, Zeph finished. Shut up, Sanji yelled, and I told you to not treat me as a damn kid anymore. Please Sanji. Jin said, shadowing his eyes, and his hands trembling. I don't to kill you. Please leave the ship. I don't want to kill my savior. I don't want Don to kill you. Your captain is down, Jin. You better leave your nonsensical act. Luffy stated, glaring at the guy, who was trying to muster up his courage to pull the trigger. As if a bomb had been dropped, everyone turned towards Luffy and in unison shouted, What? Krieg lost? Jin asked, his eyes shadowed by his bandana. As if that could ever happen. He's the supreme ruler of the seas. Nah, he is just a weakling, relying on external strength, Luffy replied, with his hands on the back of his head. How dare you brat sprout such nonsense? The Krieg pirates yelled at Luffy. Ardon is invincible. The strongest one in the East Blue, another Krieg pirate yelled. While some of the Krieg pirates were shouting profanities, some began searching for their Don. It didn't even take a minute for them to find the bloodied body of Krieg on a floating wreck. Don, a Krieg pirate yelled, eliciting a stir from said man. What? Jin asked, listening to the horrified screams of his fellow mates, who were slowly surrounding a body. When the hell did his armor shatter? How did he get this horrifying wound? It doesn't look good at all. Jin's hands dropped the gun by themselves. Once he saw Don Krieg standing up, looking unconscious and howling. The cobweb wound in his chest looked horrifyingly life-threatening. What the heck? Jin shouted, rushing to his Don. WHO did this. Oops. Luffy said nonchalantly, admiring the work he had done on the pirate captain. I overdid it? The cook's sweat dropped at the words of the teen, while Sanji rushed to Zeph's side to get him up. Nami, who was watching everything, felt a lick of hope in her heart. She had seen Luffy fighting, his selfless actions, and his care for people who were not even in his crew yet. He was different. Different from the other pirates she had ever encountered. Maybe, just maybe, he can defeat him. I'm the strongest, the defeated Don Krieg yelled loudly, snapping everyone's attention to the man who was bleeding heavily and was standing only due to his madness. No one dares to go against me. Don Krieg's eyes settled on the brat who had defeated him with a single punch. WHO, the hell do you think yourself as? Don Krieg snatched the guns from his crew and started shooting at Luffy, who was dancing through every one of them, surprising everyone in the vicinity. You will die, Sanji yelled in panic. The brat could have been lucky one time, but the next? No one can guarantee. Your luck can't be good every time. Even if Sanji was saying those words, deep down he felt that he should worry about Krieg and not about Luffy, who was closing in on Krieg with each bullet that was shot towards him by a horrified and mad Krieg. Damn it! Sanji gritted his teeth when Luffy jumped off the Baratie platform, stumbling a bit into the platform where Krieg was standing alone, having thrown his crew offboard when they were trying to hold him down. With this lethal wound even, he is impossible to beat. Nah, the kid will win, Zeph said with confidence. Luffy will win. Two voices joined them, and it was of none other than the orange-haired girl and the long-nosed boy. How the heck is he supposed to win when that man is using those weapons and when the kid is himself not in a good condition? Sanji asked irritatedly, not taking his eyes off the fight. Luffy was jumping over the cannons which were being thrown at him. Don Krieg, Jin's voice came as he jumped to intervene in the fight. You lost. Please stop it. You are only aggravating your wounds. I've won every single battle I've been in. It's impossible for a brat to defeat me, Krieg yelled, throwing blood from his mouth. You are not the strongest, Luffy said calmly, coming to a halt. His hat shadowed his eyes as he said the next words. You relied on the number, on weapons, but never on strength. There are pirates far more dangerous than you in the Grand Line. His hat lifted to show his eyes, freezing Jin for a moment, before he realized what would be happening if he didn't intervene. He stood in front of Krieg, not allowing the punch to come, which was pulled back to hit Krieg. Stop it, he pleaded to the kid, believing for the first time that he could kill Don. He punched Krieg in his wound, knocking the man unconscious. We have lost. Battle Commander, the Krieg pirates yelled. Let's retreat for today and start anew, Jin said, lifting Krieg on his shoulder. Luffy nodded. He didn't like letting go of people who would hurt others the chance they got. But he believes in giving chances. So, he let them go. He jumped back to the Baratie platform and walked towards Nami, Usopp, Sanji, and Zeph with his hands on the back of his head and a grin on his face. Thanks for everything, Sanji. Luffy caught the words of Jin as he started commanding the crew to leave. Don't come again, Sanji said, waving off the man while supporting Zeph. Hey, Luffy, Jin said, looking over his shoulder to the kid who halted and turned his head slightly to look at Jin. Let's meet again out on the Grand Line. Sure, Luffy said, giving his signature smile. You still gonna go there? Sanji asked curiously. When I think about it, there is nothing else that I want to do, Jin replied. This time I will do things in my way. We will get stronger before we enter the Grand Line once again. Till then, goodbye. Goodbye. Luffy waved off energetically. He could have recruited Jin for his crew, but he knew where his loyalties were. He started walking towards his friends who were waiting, but all of a sudden they felt too far away. And why were they moving up and down or left and right? Nami was happy that the fight was over. Finally, she can flee. Luffy was safe and Zoro would recover soon. So, it's time for her to leave. She was about to leave when all of a sudden Luffy fell in the water. This idiot, it was not a time to take a dip, even if he was improving in his swimming. On the other hand, Usopp felt it funny when Luffy fell into the ocean. Luffy sure knows how to surprise others, but still, something felt off to him and he couldn't pinpoint why. Meanwhile, Sanji watched as Luffy fell straight into the ocean. He had read about devil fruit eaters when he was a kid and he knew that they couldn't swim in exchange for their abilities. So, without hesitation, he dove in to save the kid who had saved Baratie and Zeph's life. On the surface, Zeph was shocked when he saw the orange-haired girl and the long-nosed boy not move an inch when the kid fell. Why did you two not go to save the brat? Zeph asked, confused. He had seen the crew caring for each other, especially the little brat, but he didn't realize that they were ready to leave the kid to die in the ocean. Were they also devil fruit eaters? Couldn't he swim back? Usopp asked, confused. He had heard Luffy pestering Zoro about taking him to swim, so he was quick to realize that Luffy always could. So, he would be able to come back on his own. Why would he need to be saved when he knows to do it by himself? After all, Luffy was strong. Don't you know devil fruit eaters can't swim? Zeph asked, realizing soon enough that people in East Blue don't know that. So, he opted to explain it despite the shocked face of the orange-haired girl whose nails were digging into her palms. Those E's obtained from devil fruit are hated by the sea, and as a curse they sink in the ocean like an anchor. Zeph completed, not getting the horrified expression of the orange-haired girl, who looked ready to say otherwise but stopped herself. A few moments ago, when Sanji dove in to rescue the idiot, he panicked. 'Cause he couldn't find the brat anywhere. It was as if the brat had vanished. But he decided against giving hope and dove further down. He swam and swam, feeling himself getting at the edge. He needed oxygen but he couldn't get to the surface without the kid. Miss Nami would be upset and he could not let that happen. After a few more seconds of searching, he finally found the brat lying at the bottom of the ocean, cradled by the sea grass. His mouth was wide open, indicating that the brat had inhaled seawater. It wasn't good. Sanji picked up the boy, suddenly feeling that he was a lot heavier than he looked, but that was not enough to make him give up. He started swimming upward to the surface despite the feeling that something was not allowing him to. With a gasp he came to the surface, holding the dripping kid. He pressured the stomach of the teen, wanting the water he had inhaled to be thrown out. "Has he drank seawater?" Nami asked in a low voice, taking a step closer to where Sanji was trying to bring Luffy back to consciousness. "Damn it!" Usopp cursed when Sanji answered Nami's question with a yes. "If I had known that Luffy didn't know how to swim, then great, Usopp would have brought him up faster than you did," Usopp said, trying to defuse the situation, but sadly it didn't work. No one even blinked an eye at his lie. "Bring him in," Zeph said with a sigh. They needed to help their savior after all. Also, the cooks looked like they could take some rest. "On it," Sanji replied without retortion. He picked up the teen, who didn't throw a single drop of seawater from his mouth and was apparently breathing, which was a miracle itself. Miss Nami even got up on her knees to follow him, only to be halted when Luffy's hand dropped and held the hem of Nami's t-shirt. "Don't. Gee. Oh," Luffy said in a weak voice, his face scrunched in pain. Nami couldn't move. She couldn't do anything until a moment later when Luffy's hand fell back, swinging back and forth as Sanji took him to the room where Zoro was. Nami couldn't bring herself to leave anymore. Not after hearing a sad, wavering, and lonely voice from the energetic, charming, and adorable teen. She couldn't will herself to even move. Her hopes to leave the crew and return to her village were crushed. "He will be okay," Usopp said, planting a hand on Nami's shoulder. Nami nodded, wiping the stray tears which leaked from her eyes. "Yes, he is Luffy after all," Nami said as she and Usopp followed Sanji slowly. Yosaku and Johnny were helping the cooks who were unharmed to clean up the debris, only cause Zeph had threatened them too. In the meanwhile, Usopp and Nami were sitting beside Zoro and Luffy. Usopp was trying his best to defuse the situation and make it less tense. He was telling stories after stories. The only thing he was best at after his shooting skills. But it wasn't working. It wasn't making the duo get up. Neither was there any change in the duo's face, nor was Nami looking good. She looked worried. On the other side, Sanji had finally caught up to Zeph, who was ordering the cooks and the two poor souls to clean up the restaurant. "Old man, why?" Sanji asked, gritting his teeth. "Why what, eggplant?" Zeph asked nonchalantly, with a slightly raised eyebrow. "You know what I am asking about," Sanji said in anger. "Why would you use me as an exchange to the pirates? Why?" He refused to lift his head to glare at the man rather than the floor. He didn't want to show Zeph that he was weak. "Brat, that was a deal, so you need to go with them," Zeph said, wanting Sanji to understand his dream and go out to search for it. "Either way, we don't need a cook like you." Usopp left, making an excuse that he needed to give food to his pet sea kings, which was obviously a lie. But Nami didn't stop him. She needed some time alone, to process everything, and it was good that Usopp was out, even if it meant for a minute. It was Zoro first, who has lost a lot of blood and no one knew when he would be getting up, and then it was Luffy, who fell without any reason. Yeah, he was looking pale from the beginning of the fight, but that didn't mean that he has to be out like light right now without any reason. They didn't took him to a doctor cause Luffy wouldn't like it. But his body was burning up and they don't know what to do at all. Nami and Usopp had to refuse Zeph's help when he offered to ask one of the cook, who apparently had a medical background, to look after Luffy. But what are they supposed to do right now with them down? What can make him get up? They didn't know anything about Luffy except that he has a goofy and cheerful attitude and a smile is so bright that it could make everyone forget their worries. Drops and drops of water fell on her thighs, making Nami realize that her sight was blurry too. Her hands refused to raise up to wipe her tears and chose to grip on the skirt which she was wearing. She felt helpless that she couldn't help her friends. She was useless at the battlefield. Maybe if she had helped in the fight, Luffy would be okay. Would be up, would be doing his regular works, and would have found a way to make Zoro up too. Please," she said with a choked voice, silently crying. "I hiccup have. Ine. Veer sob got a single fr friend hiccup in my L life. She wasn't even able to recognize her own voice. Please. I beg hiccup you be. Oath, do don't die. She couldn't explain the tears which were flowing freely from her eyes. All she could do was cry and tell Zoro and Luffy in her cracked voice that how she was used as a slave by Arlong, how she was despised by the whole village all cause Arlong took her and hence never have she had a single friend, until Luffy, Zoro and Usopp came in. Even Sanji, the cook who hit on her with every chance he got was a friend of her now. Nami harshly wiped her tears as she started telling the story of how Arlong and his crew had arrived at Kokoyashi village one day and killed her mother. How he had taken her in and used her to create his maps. How he asked money from each of the civilians in the Kokonomi Islands to give them the permit to survive. And lastly, her deal with Arlong for freeing her village, her hard work of collecting 100 million berries all to save her village. I never want to drag you all in this, Nami said in a low voice. I would never want you to die. I just want to leave this all and go but, Nami said wiping the tears. I don't want to abandon my friends. Luffy is reckless without you Zoro. Nami said looking straight at the green-haired man. Zoro was the only one who could keep up with Luffy and hence protecting him most of the times, but now that he is down. Please Zoro, please wake up for him. He needs you to look after him. Nami didn't know why was she saying those, when her own suffering was crumbling her, was breaking her. Tears started clouding her vision all again. She scrunched her eyes, remembering Luffy's words of trusting him to defeat Arlong. Remembering Zoro siding with Luffy without a single thought. Her whole body shook and trembled, as she broke into sobs. Her right arm fingers were digging into her left arm's flesh, scratching the Arlong tattoo, which showed that she belonged to them. Why you don't know anything and yet you were ready to fight for my village, Nami whimpered choking on her tears. The fight has nothing to do with you. Nami bit her lower lip to not her sobs get the best of her. I want to leave, yet I can't. She hiccuped. Why the hell was she crying even? Why the fuck was she even telling these? Didn't she promise to never cry and never tell these to anyone? She couldn't comprehend anything. Only the words of Luffy were going on and on and on in her head. Luffy. Nami choked looking at the still body of Luffy. Help me, she begged. She wanted to see Luffy back in action and not lying so pale and lifeless. Someone pulled her into a hug and her nose was hit with the smell of sea and meat, and a warmth like the sun. She knew who it was and hugged him instantly. Luffy, she choked out. I thought you would never wake up. She stated her worry hugging the boy who had made his space in her heart stubbornly. She. Luffy laughed bright and free, making Nami feel at ease after so many hours. I'll definitely kick Arlong's ass. Nami wiped her tears as she was let go from the hug. You're reckless, she said through her glossy eyes and a wobbly smile. Thank you for being alive, Luffy. Luffy just laughed it off. You're my friend Nami and I'll kick anyone's ass for you, right, Zoro? Of course, Captain, Zoro replied, having woken up just a few minutes before. Zoro? Nami said with a bright smile and saw Luffy shout out the same name with double enthusiasm as hers and jump on the swordsman, making him grumble in annoyance. You're alive, Luffy yelled hugging the shit out of Zoro. I wish I could have been dead now, Zoro said half-heartedly with a small smile, but that seemed to have make Luffy detach from him in an instant with horror-filled eyes. Never say that. I need Zoro, Luffy replied instantly, making Zoro hide his face in embarrassment. No one had thought that Luffy wouldn't be able to understand the joke and here he was, always doing the unexpected. Nami started giggling, which was soon joined in by Luffy who didn't understand a thing but decided to join into Nami's happiness. Usopp and Sanji who were listening the conversation from the start sported a smile from the first time they were eavesdropping. They didn't want to offend Nami so they had just silently listened to everything that was being said. But now with the duo up, they knew things would be getting better soon enough. Great warrior Usopp is also ready to help Nami, Usopp stated revealing himself, holding his slingshot. It's good to see you two up too, he said to the duo who smiled in return. Usopp. Nami whispered in a low tune looking at Usopp who wasn't even shaking at all. Sanji. Luffy said making Sanji give up on hiding and come out. He didn't know how the teen knew that he was here but he just ignored it. After all, he needed to check on beautiful Nami's swan, for whom he had come in the beginning after hearing Zeph's words. He can go with them only for the sake of saving the beautiful princess just like her knight, but he has a debt to pay. He wasn't even given time to brace himself when Luffy jumped on him saying, "Yay, Sanji is finally coming with us." Sanji got a tick mark at that. He was still angry that he was used as a bargaining chip, but when he was about to say it, stomach decided to grumble out loud. "I'm hungry," Luffy said, falling on Sanji completely, making him quickly catch the falling boy and place him on the bed which he was using. Sanji sighed. "Follow me," he said. He didn't like that someone would stay hungry on his watch. "Carry me, pretty please," Luffy said, making Sanji halt and making the mistake of looking at the puppy dog eyes of the kid. Sanji didn't know what to say at all. Should he let the monkey boy climb on him or should he stay pissed off from him? "If you don't, I'll carry him," the swordsman said, already getting up from the bed and going towards Luffy. Sanji wasn't that heartless to let the man aggravate his wound, but it was not that made him accept the teen's offer. It was the look Nami Swan gave him. "Fine, hop on," Sanji said with fake irritation, getting a happy cheer from the kid who jumped on his back without wasting a moment. He heard Zoro mumble that he could carry Luffy even in his state, making Usopp yell out a no, eliciting a giggle from Nami Swan, which sounded so ethereal to his ears, and a laugh from Luffy, who was swinging his feet back and forth from his back. Did he regret the position he is in? Well, Sanji will tell yes. But silently he enjoyed the jealous face of the moss-haired swordsman. The kid captain was sure adorable and like a bright sunshine, but was it okay for him to join them? To join a crew of reckless people with too big dreams, when he had abandoned his for the sake of looking after someone? He shook his head, getting rid of the thoughts, and gave the kid a piggyback ride till they entered the second floor of the barati where the cooks ate. But there was no space for anyone to sit, but there was food. He didn't even need to ask the boy to get down. "Food?" The kid cheered and ran to grab one of the plate to fill food. "Hey, where's our seats?" Sanji asked, not wanting Nami Swan to sit somewhere else but a chair. "There ain't no chairs for you," a cook said, eating his lunch. "Just eat on the floor," another cook supported. "No chairs? How is that even possible in a restaurant?" Sanji asked irritatedly, but he was halted when he saw Luffy and Zoro both carrying stacks of plates of meat and bottles of sake, sit on the floor comfortably and start to eat. Even Nami Swan and the Usopp didn't hesitate to sit on the floor. "Fine, whatever," Sanji said, giving up and filling his plate. "Yummy." Luffy cheered as he ate the juicy meat. "Not bad," Zoro stated, opening another bottle on sake. "Shouldn't you not be drinking those?" Usopp asked, eyeing at the bottles of sake which were being emptied one by one. "And shouldn't you be eating vegetables and rice too?" he asked Luffy, who was gobbling meat after meat. "Whatever," Zoro replied. "Luffy, Zoro," Nami said, giving them a smile, which made them shiver a bit. Usopp inched away from Nami, knowing what was about to come. "What should you both be eating or drinking right now?" Luffy and Zoro started sweating. "Damn which. All I need is booze to get better," Zoro stated, taking his bottles away from the reach of the woman. "Yeah, what he said," Luffy replied, gathering meat in his arms and instantly filling them in his mouth for safekeeping. That got the two bonks on their heads. "Seriously, you two. Get some nutrients," Nami said, filling new plates with vegetables and rice for the duo who were scrambled on the floor, and gave them orders to finish their food which she had filled. They needed those to recover. "Hey, who was the one in charge of making this morning's soup?" A voice came, and that was of Patty. He was holding a bowl of soup in his hand. "Oh, that'd be me," Sanji said, raising his hand. "Pretty good, right? I made it especially. Gee. How the hell am I supposed to pass this crap down my stomach? What is this, pig feed?" Patty asked, throwing the soup with its bowl on the floor, in process shattering it to pieces. Nami and Usopp stopped eating and looked at the commotion, while Luffy continued nibbling on meat and Zoro sipped sake away from Nami's eyes. "Does human food not suit you? Damn raccoon?" Sanji asked menacingly, standing up slowly. He hated it when someone wasted food or mocked off his cooking skills. "Ha, this is pure crap of the highest quality. Makes me wanna puke," Patty said, bringing out his tongue to show his distaste. "Do you put actual shit in this or what?" "I'm perfectly confident about my soup," Sanji hissed. "Maybe it's your damn tongue that's." Sanji got cut off when another cook, Carne, spit out the soup which he was drinking. The other cooks followed suit soon after, draining the soup on the deck of the barati, all the complaining how terrible and horrible it was. "The hell do you think you're all doing?" Sanji shouted angrily. "You being the assistant chef was always just a sham. It's only because you've been here the longest," Patty said, crossing his arms. "If something tastes bad, then it's my right to say it's bad." Luffy could feel them lying through their teeth. He didn't like the way the cooks were acting. They were all agitating Sanji despite feeling so good after drinking the soup. He can even notice that some of the cooks had drank the whole content and added water to it, to show the draining of the soup and thus insulting Sanji. But why? Why were they acting so when they liked Sanji's cooking? Even the owner had joined it in it. "What's with this disgusting soup? Is it supposed to taste like sludge or what?" Owner Zeph asked after taking a sip of the soup. "We'd go out of business if we served this to the customers." On the surface to the others it looked like Zeph was saying the truth, except for Luffy, who caught on what was happening. There were some people in this world who showed their love by the anger, because they didn't know how to show their love otherwise. Such was Ace, when he was small. He showed only anger as a way to show his love. So, this might be the case with the old man too. But he was older, some may say, and hence, should have a better grasp of emotions. But Luffy knew better. Age never mattered in the case of emotions. Some people can and some people cannot. It was just like day and night. "Don't you joke with me, you damn geezer," Sanji shouted, instantly grabbing Zeph's cook shirt. "How is this any different from the soup you make? Well, speak up." In all this commotion, the Straw Hats sat there speechless. Even Zoro was looking at Luffy with his hands on the hilt of his only remaining sword. He won't say he liked the blondie, but if he was going to one of them, then he was a friend. But with one shook of Luffy's head, Zoro went back to sipping his sake. "The soup I make?" Zeph asked and then punched Sanji away. "Don't get cocky." "The owner punched him?" Patty asked with wide eyes. It wasn't a surprise with the owner beating up Sanji, but he never had once used his hands instead of legs. It sure was a surprise. "It's 100 years too early for a little eggplant like you to be comparing my soup with yours. I've cooked all around the world," Zeph stated, emphasizing the last part. Luffy couldn't tolerate the act anymore once Sanji was out of the room, completely sad. He got up from his seat and served himself a bowl of soup, and true to the true emotions of the cook, it was hella delicious. Wiping the delicious soup trails from his hands, he looked at the cooks and especially Zeph. "I don't get it." "What?" Zeph asked, eyeing the door through which Sanji had left. "The obvious lies which you all have been telling to Sanji since the very beginning," Luffy stated, shocking almost everyone. "What?" the cooks asked in shock. Even the Straw Hats looked at Luffy with wide eyes. They never had thought that Luffy would be someone who can catch lies, especially when he was so gullible. "You lot love his cooking and yet you tell him otherwise," Luffy stated, serving himself another bowl, and momentarily feeling that Sanji was approaching the door. "Yeah, we know," one of the cooks stated, sitting down on a chair. "Phew, that was scary. He sure was stomping mad," another all relaxed. "Everyone here knows how good Sanji's cooking is," Patty stated, serving himself a bowl of Sanji's soup. "Then why tell him otherwise?" Nami asked, looking all confused. "If you don't do that then he won't listen to us," Zeph answered to Nami before turning towards Luffy. "You're taking in Sanji, right? Taking to the Grand Line. It's his dream too." "Yep, but only if he agrees to," Luffy said with enthusiasm. He could feel Sanji freezing in shock outside the doors of the restaurant. He momentarily wondered if he was kidnapping Sanji at the end of it, but decided against it. He would ask him one last time before leaving. If he joins in then it's fine, if not, then the place of the cook in his ship will be forever open for Sanji. Outside the door, Sanji fell on his legs and sat, listening to the ending of the play the cooks played before him, only to make him realize of his dream. He can hear them asking for seconds and thirds and even fourths. "Father, his soup." "I can hear you. You bastards," Sanji's voice wavered as he said those words. After a moment, he got up on his legs and stood straight to witness the brilliant tapestry of ocean beneath the caressing touch of the sun. It looked as if everything was asking him to go look for the one thing that his heart desires the most to see. The all blue. His whisper got carried by the wind to the ears of someone who would make sure to protect his dream forever and help him find it. "Here I come," he said with a full-blown smile, and dashed to his compartment to pack up to the new journey which awaited. To help the beautiful Nami Swan too. He turned around with a twist in his legs and faced the door, where laid the way to reach his dream. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes for a moment, listening the happy chatter from his father figure and the rest of the cooks, who were enjoying his cooking. With a push on the door, he opened the door and entered. The chatter and murmur ceased to exist. The cooks and head chef was looking at him, probably to start their drama again to push him towards his dream, but he didn't need that anymore. He has understood that he is the one who has to carry his father figure's dream and his dream forward. He has to find it. He looked straight at Luffy, his about-to-be captain. He can feel him already understanding what he was about to say from the big smile he was carrying on his face. That sure did startle him for a minute, but regardless he has a decision to announce. "I'll accompany you on your way to become the Pirate King," Sanji stated calmly, leaning against the wall of the Bharati, leaving the cooks with wide mouths. "After all, we both have crazy dreams," Sanji said, remembering the time when the kid had boldly declared his dream. "I'll be the cook for your ship." "Sounds great," Luffy cheered with his hands up in the air and ran straight towards him to leech on him like a bug. Sanji sighed before face-palming himself. He was in, right? He let out a chuckle, as he felt Luffy climb on his shoulders and sit comfortably there with a bright sunshine smile on his face. "Zoro, Nami, Usopp, we finally got Sanji, yippee," he said, jumping down to the deck and running to Usopp to do their little victory dance. "He did it," Zoro said, smiling at Luffy danced with Usopp. "Yeah, he did it," Nami said with a giggle. The happiness sure was contagious, as each and everyone in the room sported a smile on their face. "That's how it's gonna be, guys," Sanji said, turning towards the cooks. "Sorry for all the trouble I put you through." Patty humphed, continuing his act. "I don't like it one bit. I wanted to throw you out of here with my own two hands, but now you decide to leave on your own? Sorry for making you put on that shitty performance," Sanji said, intentionally breaking the cooks out of their play. "Wha? You knew?" Patty yelled loud in embarrassment. "I could hear it crystal clear from outside, you numbskulls," Sanji said, looking away and seeing his captain out in the deck with the others. They would have finished with their lunch. "Now get the hell out of here, eggplant," Zeph said, making Sanji angry. "You want to so desperately kick me out, geezer?" Sanji asked angrily. "That's exactly right, Lil Eggplant. I've always hated brats. There hasn't been a single day when I don't regret saving a brat like you," Zeph stated, making Sanji angry further. "Whatever, enjoy the few years you have left," Sanji said, turning his back to the cooks and to the geezer to go to his cabin to pack his things. The beginning days of the Bharati, when the geezer has suggested feeding anyone who is hungry. The time when he started smoking, to show that he was a grown-up. He wanted to grow up fast, all because he wanted to help his savior. The time when the cooks started coming in. The time when he got kicked for cooking crap. The time when some diners talked shit about the old man and the old man beating the shit out of some diners when they agitated his cooks. That time when they fought against some no-name pirates who tried to threaten the restaurant and all the cooks stood their ground in order to protect it. He would be leaving everything behind now, except the memories which he would carry till forever in his heart. With the help of everyone, the Mary was ready to set sail once again. It was filled to its brim with food given by the generous cooks to show their gratitude for defeating Krieg. Even Nami had hauled something, and that was none other than the broken gold armor of Krieg, which was floating on one of the wrecked platform. Adding that to her haul, she had a complete 100 million to free her village. "Sanji sure is taking his time," Usopp stated, breaking Nami's trail of thoughts. "Hey, he might have got lost," Zoro stated with a smirk. "He can totally believe that." Luffy stated with a bright grin, as he saw the silhouette of Sanji emerging finally. "He's here." Sanji walked straight in mid of the cooks, who looked at him with stern faces. Even Patty and Carne went far to literally kick him out of the restaurant with their weapon spoons, shouting that it was a payback for all the years. But it was useless, as Sanji easily kicked them to the deck. The atmosphere looked tense, with none of the cooks and Sanji exchanging even a single word. Sanji's shoes clicked on the deck until he reached the ship which will be his home on the seas from now on. "Let's go," he said without turning to look back. "Just like that?" Luffy asked with his head cocked aside. "What about goodbyes?" Usopp asked from beside Luffy. Zoro leaned against the railing and took in the sights of the cooks. Even Nami was looking at them to find someone. "It's fine," Sanji said. jumping on the deck of the Going Merry easily. "Hey Sanji." Sanji froze with his back still to the Bharati. "Don't catch a cold." The voice was of none other than the geezers. As if a dam had been left open, Sanji's eyes welled up with tears falling from his eyes. "Owner Zeph," Sanji shouted, turning on his heels and planting his head on the deck of the Merry. Zeph was able to see the snot and tears carefully from where he stood as Sanji kneeled down. "I'm eternally grateful for taking care of me for so damn long. I shall never forget for the rest of my life the debt I owe you." Zeph couldn't control the tears which he kept at bay and let them down finally. He would miss his Sanji, his son. "Goddamn it. We are gonin' be lonely without ya," Patty yelled out through his own tears. "Real lonely, you hear?" Carne shouted up, as his tears leaked through his eyes. Sanji lifted his head to witness everyone's tears faces. His own tears were not stopping at all. "I'll miss you. You're making us cry, damn it. Damn idiots. Men should say their goodbyes silently," Zeph stated, wiping down his tears. "Let's meet again one day, you goof-for-nothing bastards," Sanji shouted out. "All right. Let's set sail. How many days will it take to reach Armong, Nami?" Luffy asked the navigator of the ship. He was sitting on his favorite seat on the Merry, looking at the vast ocean, hearing shanties carried by the wind and his mother from pirates, merchants and marines alike. Nami sighed, giving up to understanding how Luffy understands that she is here. In fact, Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji were also there. All to discuss about some things. Yosaku and Johnny had been asked to fish since they thought it was appropriate for them to not know what they were about to talk. "Are you sure about it, Luffy?" she asked for the umpteenth time. She didn't want her friends to be killed at all. Luffy turned around to face his friends with a big wide smile. "I'm absolutely sure." His smile took a feral edge to it as he further said, "He has made my navigator cry, he needs to pay for it." "But he is a fishman," Nami retorted, even though she knew this was a losing match. So, it was Zoro who asked, with his arms crossed over his chest and a feral smile like that of Luffy on his face. Nami mentally facepalmed. Sure, Luffy and Zoro were both idiots. "He is 100 times stronger than you all," Nami pointed out. "Nami-san, I won't let the bastard live. How dare he made such a beautiful lady cry. He will pay for his sins," Sanji stated, gritting his teeth, making Nami feel lucky to have such wonderful friends. "You guys," Nami mumbled with slightly glossy eyes. "Hey, did you forgot that Luffy and Zoro both challenged Mihawk and have lived to tell a tale?" Usopp pointed out. He was feeling that they will win this fight if Zoro and Luffy were at their side. Nami sighed and rubbed her temples. "I seriously still don't know how that happened. And heck, Luffy challenged the warlord and came out unscathed. Seriously, I don't know anything about it." Nami then looked at Luffy, who was grinning wide, and said sternly, "But we won't go straight off to the fight." "Why not?" Luffy asked, cocking his head to the side. "Well, I think we should avoid fighting if at all possible." The single sentence made the color come back in Usopp's face, who was a little bit frightened about the fight. "With what I got from Krieg's armor, I think I have enough to buy back the village," Nami said, determined to save the crew from Arlong's wrath. "The rest of the money is buried under the tangerine grove. We can dock the ship near my house, and I can get the money to hand over to Arlong." "Okay," Luffy said, understanding most of the part of the plan, "but if it doesn't work then we'll just beat them up." "Dear Nami Swan, you look so pretty while making plans," Sanji gushed before turning to Zoro, who grunted in dissatisfaction. "What was that, you mosshead?" "Curly brows," Zoro said with a glare and then proceeded to say, "Whatever, I still think it's naive to think that we'd get away without a fight. I don't think that fish is going to keep his word at all." "We'll try Nami's way first," Luffy said, cutting off any argument which would have arose between two, who were about to declare each other as their sworn enemy. "Fine," Zoro relented, leaning against the railing. His chest wound wasn't hurting much anymore, but it still itched whenever he moved too much. "I have a question," Sanji said, lighting a cigarette. "Why didn't anyone take you to a doctor when you fainted?" He was curious about it. Since he can clearly see that the crew loved the youngest, but what was with them when he fainted? They left him clearly to die. Nami, Usopp and Zoro exchanged a look and looked at Luffy, who decided to look away from everyone's eyes and look straight at the vast, quiet and calm ocean. But the question was Luffy's to answer. So Luffy scrunched his face in distaste and replied, "I hate doctors." He had never needed one, and whenever he went to one, they started looking at him like he was not normal, except Ivankov and some other guys, only because they were used to him. "We learned it in a hard way that taking Luffy to a doctor is a bad news," Usopp replied Sanji's question, making him raise his eyebrows and think of the possible tantrums a kid can throw regarding not seeing a doctor. But well, that gave the idea of getting a doctor in the crew. It was important. A doctor who Luffy wouldn't be afraid of and most importantly would trust too. "How are we supposed to help you when something get wrong with you?" Nami asked immediately. She didn't want to see Luffy all pale again ever in her life. "Don't worry about me," Luffy stated with his signature smile. But that wasn't enough for them right now. "Listen Luffy, you are our captain," Zoro said in a serious voice. "What kind of crew are we if we do not know when and how to aid our captain?" "Zoro thinks too much," Luffy said with a soft smile and jumped off his seat from Mary. "But if something like that happens, then don't worry, I'll be up soon." "Come to think of it," Usopp said, making a thinking gesture. "Why did you faint in the first place?" He had this question in his mind from the very first time he had seen the team faint after Kuro's fight. That time, they all can blame to the eerie transformation, which still gave him chills. But this time nothing like that even happened. Luffy pouted at the question but nonetheless replied, "First, I got the winds to get Mary safe to the other side, and then when Zoro was fighting, my anger made the lightnings to crash, which further drained my energy," he replied nonchalantly, not even looking at the widened expressions of everyone. What? Usopp shrieked, not understanding a thing. "I thought devil fruits gave users only one type of power?" Sanji whispered with widened eyes. "How did you control them?" Nami asked with baffled expression. "How does lightning and wind has anything to do with rubber?" Zoro asked the next, unable to curtain his curiosity. He clearly remembers Luffy being hesitant to say anything about his powers when they first met, but he couldn't have even imagined this. In all this, Luffy had started sweating and had put his hands on his mouth to keep quiet. He was again too late to realize that he shouldn't have said those. But he trusts his friends. But what if they run away from him due to fear? This all indicated to the Straw Hats that Luffy was not lying at all, which they desperately wished that he was doing. But they clearly remembered the lightning. Also the crew in the syrup village remembers the blood-curdling thunder which had announced its arrival, which had scared the shit out of some of them. Everything was coming to peace slowly. Nami understood why she was never able to predict them, cause they were not natural. They responded to Luffy. They were controlled by Luffy. Well, that's a lot to take. "What is your devil fruit, Luffy?" Nami asked. Her eyes were slowly filling with horror and awe. She couldn't tell what she was feeling at all. It's not like Luffy didn't trust his crew, but it's just that he didn't want some bastards to know yet that he has returned. So, he tried lying. Rubber. But he failed miserably under the gaze of his friends and crew, and in return got disappointed looks from his friends. He hated it, so he decided to say it, but before giving them a warning. "The name will make you the worst target of the world government itself. Do you still want to know?" Luffy warned in a low voice. He didn't want to make them face problem this early on, when they were not ready for the madness which would be the new world yet. Luffy turned to look at his friends, to burst out laughing. Nami and Usopp were completely pale, as if they have seen a ghost, while Sanji and Zoro were able to keep their faces calm, but inside they were a bit panicked. But he could tell each one of them wanted to know more about his powers and him. It was Sanji who decided to break the silence. He took a drag from his cigarette, took a breath, and then looked at Luffy. "The name is going to come out sooner or later, so I don't care about it much," Sanji stated calmly. "But for my dear Nami Swan's safety I won't be asking." "Luffy, how?" Zoro said calmly, getting up from where he was sitting and facing directly to Luffy. "So, it's your choice, but know it that I'm with you regardless of anything." Luffy giggled at that and let a soft smile settle on his face. He knows he can trust his crew more than anything. After all, he has the best crew in the world. "I renamed it as Hito no Mi. Model Nika," Luffy stated with a giggle. "It sounds better than the name the world government gave it to hide it." "That's way different than the Gomu no Mi which you told us," Nami pointed out, forgetting the fact that now that she knows the name she is one of the worst target of the world government, but someone looked like he remembered it. "WWE Jew just became targets for the world government," Usopp shrieked. paling rapidly, and it was then when Nami came in and realized what had just happened. "Ah!" Nami screamed, getting hold of the situation. "I don't want to die young," she cried as she fell on her knees just like Usopp, and they cried together in fear of getting hunted by the world government. "No one knows we know it." Zoro's sweat dropped and pointed it out, making Nami and Usopp realize that and quickly look at their vicinity for any marine ship. All the while Luffy couldn't control his laugh and burst out laughing. "Don't worry, my dear Nami Swan, I am going to protect you," Sanji yelled out and noodled his way to Nami to protect her from any unforeseen danger with hearts in his eyes, only to get "pervert cook" from Zoro. He was about to yell at the swordsman but got pounded on the deck by Nami Swan's so smooth fists. Luffy chuckled and swore that day that no matter what, he is gonna protect his friends from anything that they face. He wants to see them so lively always. "Wait, what do you mean you renamed it?" "Oops," Luffy said with a chuckle and ran away to the kitchen to grab a snack for himself, being chased by an angry Nami and Sanji who was following Nami. Even Usopp was running after him, and Zoro, while he was leaning on the railing and watching him with a soft smile on his face. This was one of the best days for Luffy, playing tag with more than half of the crew. She. It was late night when Luffy crawled out of his hammock, after checking that everyone was indeed deep asleep. Even Zoro, who had been exercising, even after hearing shouts from both Nami and Usopp, was fast asleep. He had wanted to go to his mother in the early evening, but he couldn't do that with Yosaku and Johnny on board, who clearly knew that devil fruit users can't swim. Technically, he isn't a devil fruit user, as the humans mostly say, so it doesn't affect him. And why will Mama even hate him? She hates the beings who have gone ahead and two. The moon shone brightly above him, making him realize that he was on the deck already. He smiled and went ahead to sit on his favorite place. The spirit of Mary appeared before him, making him greet the little ship spirit. "Hello, Mary." Mary giggled and flew around him. "My greetings, little king." "Ah," Luffy stated with a pout. "Don't call me little king, we are nakama." Mary tilted her head just the way Luffy was used to do. "But what shall I call you then, my little king?" "Call me Nika or Luffy," Luffy whispered, standing on the figurehead of Mary. He can see his mother waiting patiently for him. "So be it, Nika-sama, have a good evening," Mary said with a giggle and disappeared, making Luffy pout. He didn't like to be addressed that way. It makes him feel way too old, but it's okay if Mary likes to call him that. With that thought, Luffy jumped in his mother's arms, which cradled him instantly. The warmth his mother's cold arms brought to him was indescribable. He so loves it, because he knows that at some point, he wouldn't get it. "Little king, will you play with us tonight?" Nika giggled. He sure wasn't sleepy, so Yash. He can play all night with his little friends in the water. So, that was how Luffy passed his night, playing tag with the little fishes who swam so expertly. Luffy sure needs to get his swimming lessons with Zoro, 'cause he doesn't want to cheat with his friends with his mother's help. The early rays of sun hit the Mary and in midst woke up the cook. When Sanji woke up, he saw that Luffy was not in his hammock. He shrugged it off, thinking to himself that the kid might have went ahead and raided the kitchen, since he obviously looks like the type to do that. He might scold him, but he would make him snacks later before the breakfast. But when Sanji arrived in the kitchen to find it just the way he had left, he felt a little worried. So, he quickly went off to the deck to look for his little captain. And fortunately, he found him lying on Mary's figurehead, sleeping soundly. He took a breath of relief, which he was holding at the sight of his captain well. He took his steps back and went back to the boys' dorm to fetch a blanket for the teen. He didn't want to get him sick, especially when his captain hated doctors and straight off refused to see them. When he was about to place the blanket to cover the teen, he found something unusual. Luffy had sand particles clinging to his skin and hair, making some unusual markings like a tattoo. "Don't bother," a voice came, making him flinch a bit. He turned around and glared at the moss head, who caught him clearly. "What do you mean?" Sanji asked while glaring at the swordsman. "I meant don't bother to question him about the sand," Zoro stated, coming closer and finding the patterns. "You know about it," Sanji stated in a low voice. He didn't want to wake Luffy up at all. "Yes, it's the 7th time he has got sand out of nowhere on his skin and hair," Zoro stated with a sigh. Zoro won't associate himself with a morning owl, but whenever he had woken up early than Luffy, he had found him with sand littered on his body, which always made some weird patterns on him. Even one time, he had asked Luffy about it in hell. He really wishes he hadn't heard the absurd answer which had came out of nowhere. A yawn cut Zoro and Sanji off their thoughts and made them turn towards Luffy, who was sitting up and rubbing his eyes. The sand which had covered him was slowly slipping away, making the onlookers feel that they never existed in the first place. "Good morning, Zoro, Sanji," Luffy chirped with a bright sunny smile, making them reciprocate it. "Good morning, Luffy," Zoro and Sanji said at the same time, making each of them glare at each other and Luffy to giggle. "I'm hungry," Luffy said with a whine and looked at Sanji. "Sanji, food." "It will be ready in an hour," Sanji said with a sigh and went ahead to the kitchen to cook. Luffy yawned again and blinked his eyes. He had just slept for 10 minutes. He felt a bit tired from playing the whole night with his little fish and Sea King friends. But the night was fun and he didn't regret it. "Go back to sleep," Zoro said, seeing that Luffy wasn't able to keep his eyes open. Luffy responded and made grabby hands. He has always been carried to bed by his father or brother when he felt tired. "What are you, a baby?" Zoro grunted, seeing Luffy using puppy eyes on him. "Please," Luffy said with a little whine, and unknowingly or knowingly his eyes looked just like a kicked puppy. "I'm tired." "Fine," Zoro grunted, turning around to let his captain, who was acting like a baby, to hop on. "Thank you, Zoro," Luffy whispered, instantly falling asleep and giving Zoro a tick mark. "Who the hell sleeps that fast?" Zoro yelled. Not getting an answer, he sighed and walked to the boy's dorm to settle the boy, who instantly clung to his shirt, not allowing him to leave. Zoro sighed and threw a pillow for the boy to cling with instead of his shirt. He watched Luffy snuggle into the pillow and got himself comfortable before falling still and sleeping. He was becoming a babysitter, wasn't he? Zoro sighed and left the dorm to do some exercise. An hour later, Luffy was already awake and playing with Usopp, after getting a quick morning snack from Sanji. Bree announced saving Usopp from being caught in the tag as Luffy made a beeline for the kitchen, forgetting the game of tag they were playing. "Usopp, can you wake up Yosaku and Johnny too?" Sanji asked, but was beat to it when Zoro came down from the crow's nest with Johnny and Yosaku. It didn't take long for everyone to gather at the kitchen table. The breakfast was as jovial as it was yesterday, with Luffy attempting to get more food from others. "We will reach Kokonomi Islands by night," Nami stated, breaking the little chatter which was going on. She wasn't able to get her to stop shaking, and here everyone was chatting as if they were not going to fight with fishmen soon enough. "That's too long," Luffy whined, making Nami look up from her plate to Luffy, who didn't look scared at all. "Just one more day then," Zoro said in a way to reason with Luffy. "Wait, I have an idea," Luffy said, shoving his remaining food in his mouth and running off from the kitchen. "What is it this time?" Usopp asked in a low voice. All of Luffy's ideas, which he had witnessed till now, were insane. He doesn't want another insane idea coming out of nowhere. "Mahoo!" A loud cry went off, making Usopp visibly flinch, followed by the ship lurching sideways and crashing of many plates. Zoro didn't waste any moment in getting out of the deck with Sanji on tow. But the rest of them decided to peek from the door of the kitchen to the outside deck, not wanting to get caught up, or were rather not given the chance to get out since the door got blocked with their heads. "What the hell is that idiot doing now?" Nami shouted from the door. "I don't see how arguing with a Sea King is a good idea," Usopp whimpered. Johnny and Yosaku whimpered in agreement from where they had taken refuge after seeing Luffy gesturing wildly at the Sea King. "That's Momo," Nami shouted out so that Luffy could hear. "He's with Arlong." "Momo," Luffy said with a feral grin. "Do you want to be my food or pull this ship and take us to this Otong guy?" Momo flinched, looking at Luffy. He couldn't even meet his eyes with him. The sea cow gave a loud moo, but his voice clearly trembled. Luffy's smile turned big and wide as he heard the sea cow to agree to his demand. The sea cow lowered his head to bow to the little king, making Luffy turn around to give his crew a peace sign and a wide smile. "He said he'll give us a ride to Nami's island," Luffy announced. There was a moment of silence before they all finally found their voice to yell out, "What?" "Momo will take us to Nami's village," Luffy repeated with a huff. "Why?" Usopp wailed. He didn't even want to be in vicinity of a Sea King. "Because it'll be faster," Luffy reasoned with a could have used his wind powers, but he doesn't want himself to be drained while fighting the Arlong guy. Moreover, he can't control it well yet sadly. Luffy, he's with Arlong, Nami tried to talk him out of it. So? Luffy asked picking his nose. So? Nami screeched, squeezing out her way out of the door and finally giving up. It was Luffy after all. Fine, do what you want. Zoro came back to the deck carrying some ropes to help Luffy tie Momo up to the ship. He had gone after hearing Luffy's argument with Momo of taking them to Arlong. Luffy easily tied up the Sea King to the ship and sat on its head and kept encouraging the Sea Cow to go faster and faster, clearly enjoying the ride. Is that safe? Usopp yelled worriedly to Zoro as they picked up a speed which made everyone grab onto something. What if he falls? Everyone on the ship knew that Luffy couldn't swim, and with the new revelation that devil fruit users can't swim, there was another mystery surrounding Luffy who can practically stay in water without sinking. Heck, the kid was even trying to learn to swim. By the time the Kokonomi Islands were starting to get visible, Momo looked visibly tired and out of breath, but he continued on at the same speed in his hurry to get rid of the sheer danger he felt himself in. After all, the little king never liked the ones who sided with injustice. Adge! Usopp and Nami screamed, "We are going to crash." "I don't want to die." Yosaku and Johnny yelled in tow, clutching each other. "Make him stop, Luffy." Zoro even yelled from his place, holding the mast of the ship. "Damn cow. Stop the hell." Sanji shrieked the next and was starting to regret about his decision to join the crazy captain in the first place. But he wouldn't trade it for anything soon enough, and he knew it. "Hey, you stupid cow. Stop!" Luffy shouted, and the cow froze in an instant. But due to the momentum which he was going, the ship lifted from the water several feet high, making the Straw Hats, including Yosaku and Johnny, scream for their lives. But due to some miracle, the ship settled on the sea soon enough, making them fall on their knees and cry out of the sheer fear they had just felt. She. Luffy laughs freely. After all, he had enjoyed the ride the most. "Shut up!" the crew shouted, getting their breaths steady. It was one of the scariest rides they had ever been to. Especially the last part when they were nearly about to be thrown off the Mary but were saved only by a miracle. "You damn, stupid cow!" Sanji shouted after getting to his legs. "How dare you hurt my dear beautiful Nami Swan?" But the sea cow wasn't stupid enough to stay a moment longer before the crazy crew and its captain. "How the heck did you even convince a cow to do that?" Usopp asked with a shout, not understanding the thing in the first place. Luffy just giggled, ignoring Usopp's question, and shouted with his hands overhead, "Off to Nami's village." He didn't wait for anyone and jumped off the ship, laughing gleefully. They would follow him soon enough, and he wasn't wrong when the others soon followed him, not wanting him to get into any trouble, or in Zoro's case, not wanting Luffy to get lost. Nijiko was reading newspaper when she heard a knock to her door. She hated it whenever there would be a knock, because that would usually mean that Arlong's henchmen were back to ask money in place of her life. Regardless, she got up from the table and opened the door to find Nami standing before her. "Nami!" Nijiko let out and quickly enveloped her younger sister in her arms. "Nijiko!" Nami whispered back, and Nijiko was quick enough to hear the real smile within the words. She separated herself from her sister and looked at her smiling face. She was really smiling. How long has it been since she had last seen her sister smiling? It had been a decade. "We are going to get our village back today," Nami said, getting her sister out of her trance. Nijiko's eyes widened and her lips quivered a little. "You finally got it?" she asked in a trembling voice. "Yep," Nami said with a brilliant smile and stepped aside to show her a group of people. "My friends helped me in my last haul." "Friends?" Nijiko asked with shock. Nami had never made friends, and even if she made them, she betrayed them. But she could feel that this group had given Nami the thing she always wanted. She couldn't express her joy at all. "Guys, meet my older sister, Nijiko," Nami said, pointing to Nijiko and making Sanji gush about how beautiful her sister looks. "And Nijiko, they are Luffy, Zoro, Usopp, Sanji, Johnny and Yosaku," she said, pointing each of them, making Nijiko nod to them. "Nice to meet you all," Nijiko said with a little bow. She couldn't tell how grateful she was to them. But nonetheless, there are other things to do right now. "Nami, what's your plan now?" "They will help me carry the treasure to Arlong, and then Arlong will leave for good according to our deal," Nami said with determination. "Okay," Nijiko said. "I'll see ya soon then." she said and ran off to somewhere. Meanwhile, Nami pointed out the graves which were to be dug in order to get the treasures she had collected. Her first thought was to go to Arlong and then tell him the place to collect the money, but on second thought, she doesn't want Arlong or his henchmen coming near her house. Ash will finish it for once and all. On the other side, Nijiko ran and ran and ran until she neared the Kokoyashi village where the villagers had gathered and were paying off their taxes. "Everyone," she shouted, after she saw Chu going back to Arlong's park. "Nami has done it. She has finally done it," Nijiko repeated with a big smile on her face. "What? Are you saying it for real, Genzo?" the village chief shouted back in excitement. Yes. She has even got friends," Nijiko replied happily. "I was so worried for her when she had started working for Arlong for our sake," a grandma said, wiping her tears of joy. "I'm so glad she had gotten someone." "Me too," Nijiko replied happily. "Let's go to the Arlong Park and see our freedom for ourselves." Genzo cheered out, making the villagers cheer back and march to the Arlong village.